Why do the world's greatest ancient enigmas still defy explanation? Are these anomalies mere quirks of history or signs we've misunderstood our past? From the precise alignments of the Great Pyramids to the enduring mystery of Stonehenge, definitive answers remain elusive. These are not myths, but hard evidence artifacts and sites that challenge the established narrative. Prepare to question everything as we explore the data behind history's most persistent puzzles. Hidden deep within the Arabuko-Sokoke forest, just a few kilometers from Kenya's coast, lies an ancient city wrapped in moss, coral, stone walls, and centuries of silence. This is Gedi, or Gedi ruins, one of Africa's most enigmatic archaeological sites, where coral limestone walls still stand amid wild nature, telling the story of a once thriving civilization that vanished without explanation. When archaeologists first excavated the area in the early 20th century, they were astonished by what they found: a vast stone city meticulously planned, with fortified walls, grand gateways, mosques, palaces, residential quarters, deep wells, and an advanced drainage system. What baffled them most was that Gedi was built deep in the forest, far from trade routes, yet constructed entirely from coral limestone, a material found only near the coast. This revealed that Gedi's inhabitants possessed remarkable technical skill, organization, and resources. Yet the greatest mystery of all lies not in its grandeur, but in a question that has haunted researchers for decades. Who built Gedi, and why did they disappear without a trace? What do you think really happened to the people of Gedi? Were they forced to leave, or did they simply vanish for reasons we still can't understand? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your theory. Around the 12th to the 13th centuries, when most of East Africa was still dotted with small coastal villages, a remarkable city emerged in the heart of Kenya's dense forests, Gedi. Despite its isolation from the outside world, the city possessed every feature of a thriving medieval urban center: solid stone houses, mosques precisely aligned toward Mecca, bustling marketplaces, and even private sanitation systems in each household, something unheard of anywhere else in the region at that time. The entire city was surrounded by walls over 2 meters high, clearly dividing areas by class: a central zone for the elite, outer quarters for commoners, and community gardens and orchards that sustained the population. Such an organized layout revealed a society with advanced urban planning, social structure, and public health awareness far ahead of its era. What baffled archaeologists most, however, was that no historical record ever mentioned Gedi. Even though Kenya was part of the vibrant Swahili trade network, all Arab, Persian, and Portuguese sources remain completely silent, as if this city had never existed at all. Architectural studies show a mix of Arab, Islamic, Swahili, and ancient Persian influences. Some scholars believe Gedi was built by Muslim Swahili traders who had long-standing connections with the Arab-Persian world via the Indian Ocean trade routes. But this theory faces a major contradiction. No known Swahili settlements were ever located deep in the forest. They typically built coastal cities for easy trade access. Establishing a major city inland, away from ports and commerce, was economically and strategically illogical. Modern researchers have proposed a bold theory. Gedi may have been a spiritual or ceremonial center, a hidden sanctuary where merchants and scholars gathered for worship, study, and exchange, not a continuously inhabited city. The mosque's carved pillars and mysterious symbols etched into the stone walls suggest that Gedi could have been a sacred retreat deliberately secluded from the outside world. But if that's true, why did they abandon it completely? Artifacts found at Gedi prove beyond doubt that it was a key node in ancient global trade. Archaeologists uncovered Ming Dynasty porcelain from China, Indian glassware, Venetian brass, Persian beads, and even coins from Yemen. These finds show that Gedi's inhabitants traded with civilizations thousands of kilometers away across the Indian Ocean. Yet this raises a haunting paradox. Why would a major trade hub be hidden in a dense forest kilometers from the sea? Some theorists suggest that the coastline might have been closer in the past, and that changes in sea level and sedimentation gradually isolated Gedi from the shore. However, geological evidence for this remains inconclusive. Thus, Gedi stands as an archaeological paradox of Africa, a city globally connected yet completely forgotten by history. The structures at Gedi are not mere lifeless ruins, they are living proof of a level of engineering and architectural intelligence far ahead of their time. The entire city was built from coral limestone, meticulously cut and fitted together with a natural mortar whose exact composition remains unknown to modern scientists. The houses and mosques reveal sophisticated architectural knowledge, featuring columns carved with intricate Arabic patterns, perfectly balanced semicircular arches, and wells over 20 meters deep that remain intact even today. Many of the buildings also contain underground drainage systems, carefully designed to manage water flow, evidence of an advanced understanding of hygiene and hydraulics rarely seen in medieval East Africa. Most strikingly, the mosques of Gedi are precisely aligned toward Mecca, proving that its builders possessed not only refined craftsmanship, but also remarkable knowledge of astronomy and geography, a testament to a civilization both scientific and advanced, far beyond what history has recorded. Around the 17th century, the city of Gedi was suddenly abandoned, with no evidence of warfare or natural disaster ever found. Everyday objects, such as ceramics, coins, metal tools, and jewelry, were left exactly where they were, covered in the dust of centuries, as if the inhabitants had quietly walked away calm, but never to return. This has baffled archaeologists for decades. How could a highly developed, organized, and devout community with advanced engineering skills and global trade connections simply vanish from history without leaving a single explanation? Some theories suggest that disease, drought, or climate change might have driven the people to abandon the city. Others propose that the collapse of local commerce, caused by Portuguese and Arab domination of the Indian Ocean trade routes, forced the inhabitants to migrate elsewhere. Yet no archaeological evidence supports these hypotheses. Some even believe Gedi was deliberately deserted, as its people may have thought the city had been cursed or punished by divine forces. Local legends warn that anyone who removes an artifact from Gedi will suffer misfortune, and even today, visitors claim that compasses spin erratically and electronic devices malfunction within the ruins, adding yet another layer to the enduring mystery of Gedi. Today, visitors to Gedi walk along moss-covered paths, through towering stone gateways, into empty chambers with deep wells and undeciphered carvings. The ruins sit quietly amid birdsong and filtered light through ancient trees. No one lives here anymore, yet the atmosphere of a once bustling city lingers, dense, silent, and filled with unanswered questions. Every wall seems to whisper a forgotten story. Every well reflects the ghost of a vanished people. Archaeologists continue to explore the site using LIDAR and ground-penetrating radar, but so far, the mystery of Gedi remains unsolved. The Gedi ruins are more than remnants of stone. They are a reminder of history's missing pages. Deep in Kenya's forests, where no one imagined a flourishing city once stood, lies proof that civilizations can rise, thrive, and vanish without ever being recorded. Looking at those mossy walls, one senses not just the weight of time, but the fragility of human memory. Who built Gedi? Why did they disappear? Perhaps they left to escape something, or perhaps they never left at all, but merely withdrew from the modern world, waiting for us to remember them. Hidden within the vast plains of southern Anatolia lies a place that quietly rewrote everything we thought we knew about the origins of civilization. Chatalhoyuk, a name that may sound strange to modern ears, was once a bustling city nearly 9,000 years ago, long before the pyramids of Egypt, long before the temples of Sumer. It is not merely a ruin, it is a time capsule from the dawn of human society, a mirror reflecting a world where people lived without kings, without streets, and perhaps without conflict. But among its many remarkable features, one question continues to haunt archaeologists and historians alike: who built Chatalhoyuk, and why did such a sophisticated community suddenly vanish? What do you think really caused the people of Chatalhoyuk to disappear? Natural disasters, disease, or something deeper that we still don't understand? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When James Mellart discovered the site in the late 1950s, what he unearthed was beyond imagination. Beneath the dust and soil were thousands of mud brick houses built so close together that they formed a solid mass of architecture. There were no streets, no city walls, and no central palace. Instead, the inhabitants climbed across rooftops like pathways, entering their homes through ladders and rooftop openings. It was as if the entire settlement was designed to be an enormous living organism where people moved in harmony over a sea of roofs. The city itself stretched over 13 hectares, accommodating several thousand people, a staggering number for its time. Each house was uniform in size, shape, and structure, suggesting a society built on equality rather than hierarchy. Archaeologists found no evidence of rulers, no monuments to gods or kings, no symbols of power. And yet every wall, every hearth, every space whispered of a deep spiritual life that bound its citizens together. Inside these modest homes, art and symbolism flourished. Bulls' skulls, known as bucrania, were embedded in the walls, their horns protruding like ancient sentinels watching over the living. Figurines of voluptuous women believed to represent fertility or a mother goddess were hidden beneath floors and hearths. The people painted their walls with scenes of hunting, dancing, and what some believe to be the earliest known map of a city depicting Chatalhoyuk itself beneath the erupting Mount Hassan. If that interpretation is correct, it would make this mural the oldest map in human history, an astonishing insight into the abstract thought of people from 7000 BCE. Death, too, was part of the home. When members of a household died, they were buried beneath the floors, wrapped carefully and interred with beads, tools, and other offerings. Later generations built new layers of homes directly atop the old ones, sealing the dead within the foundation of their family life. In this way, Chatalhoyuk was both a city and a living tomb, a continuous layering of life and death, generation after generation. Such rituals and the sheer scale of cooperation required to maintain the settlement suggest a social complexity that should not have existed so early in human history. There was no evidence of war, no fortifications, and very few weapons. This was not a people united by force, but seemingly by shared beliefs and communal survival. And yet, despite centuries of flourishing around 5700 BCE, the city was abruptly abandoned. The people of Chatalhoyuk simply disappeared, leaving behind their homes, their tools, their murals, and the bones of their ancestors. The silence of that disappearance has echoed through time ever since. The disappearance of Chatalhoyuk remains one of archaeology's greatest enigmas. Dozens of theories have been proposed, yet none have provided a definitive explanation. Some scholars believe the land became degraded after generations of continuous farming, drastically reducing yields. Living in such confined spaces, the inhabitants likely faced sanitation issues, diseases, and conflicts over survival. The tightly packed, poorly ventilated houses could have turned into breeding grounds for epidemics, something a society without medical knowledge could not control. Another theory suggests that climate change played a central role. As the Konya Plain gradually dried out water sources and fertile soil disappeared, forcing people to migrate in search of sustenance. Archaeological evidence indicates a clear environmental shift from lush wetlands to barren fields. However, many researchers, including Ian Hodder, argue that Chatalhoyuk's collapse stemmed not from external forces, but from its own internal development. As humans began to domesticate plants and animals, they also domesticated themselves, becoming trapped in endless cycles of labor rituals and beliefs. The city may have worn itself out, from within its tightly woven structure, too rigid to adapt to a changing world. Perhaps Chatalhoyuk did not fall because of nature, but because of humanity, when progress itself became their limit. The most haunting idea, however, is that we do not truly understand who these people were at all. The builders of Chatalhoyuk appeared suddenly in the archaeological record, already advanced, already settled, already skilled in art construction and community organization. There are no earlier villages nearby, showing a gradual progression towards such sophistication. It is as though an entire social model emerged fully formed, thrived for more than 1,000 years, and then vanished, leaving no direct descendants, no traceable culture to follow. This mystery fuels theories that reach far beyond mainstream archaeology. Some fringe researchers speculate about a forgotten civilization predating known history whose knowledge may have seeded Chatalhoyuk and other early settlements. Others suggest that the site represents an early attempt at urban living, an experiment in human coexistence that ultimately failed, perhaps teaching later cultures what not to do. Whatever the truth, Chatalhoyuk stands as a paradox, a civilization advanced enough to organize communal life, practice religion, and create art, yet fragile enough to be erased almost without a trace. Its disappearance may symbolize the first warning in humanity's long experiment with society that even the most harmonious systems can crumble under the weight of change. Today, the site of Chatalhoyuk is a UNESCO World Heritage Treasure. Excavations continue with new technologies like DNA sequencing, soil chemistry, and isotope analysis, offering tantalizing hints. Scientists have found that the population was genetically diverse, suggesting contact or migration between distant regions. They have also uncovered evidence that the inhabitants burned their houses deliberately after a time, a ritual cleansing or renewal that marked the end of each home's life cycle. But none of this fully explains why the entire city vanished. The soil holds their story, but not their ending. Was it drought, disease, a shift in faith, or something more profound, the realization that living so closely, so collectively, was unsustainable in the long run? Perhaps Chatalhoyuk's people chose to scatter rather than endure another cycle of rebuilding upon the bones of their ancestors. Their rooftops once formed humanity's first skyline, their murals the earliest signs of imagination, their graves the first symbol of community. Yet silence became their final legacy. Chatalhoyuk reminds us to question where civilization truly began, or if it already ended there long before Egypt or Sumer rose. The first city of humanity was also the first to vanish without a trace. Deep in the remote wilderness of southern Siberia, surrounded by icy winds and towering mountains, lies one of the most mysterious archaeological sites ever found in Russia. Por-Bajin, a name that translates from the Tuvan language as clay house. From above it, looks like a perfect geometric fortress, rising out of the middle of Lake Tericol. Massive rectangular walls, gateways, aligned precisely to the cardinal directions, and a complex grid of inner courtyards. Yet for all its grandeur and precision, this fortress is completely deserted. No one ever truly lived here. No empire claimed it. No historical record tells its story. And perhaps most haunting of all, it appeared suddenly in the 8th century, stood for only a few years, and then vanished into ruin, leaving behind only scorched walls and silence. What do you think caused Por-Bajin's sudden destruction? An earthquake, a fire, or something even stranger? Share your thoughts and theories below. Archaeologists date the construction of Por-Bajin to around 777 CE during the reign of the Uyghur Khagan Bayanchur, a time when the Uyghur Empire stretched across Central Asia, rivaling even the power of Tang China. But this date itself was a shock. The site sits over 2,000 kilometers north of the Uyghur heartlands, in one of the coldest, most inhospitable regions imaginable. Why would an empire build such a massive fortress here, far from trade routes, isolated from resources, and on an island that freezes solid every winter? The first excavations in the 19th century revealed a rectangular complex, roughly 215 by 162 meters, surrounded by walls over 10 meters high, with gates oriented perfectly east-west. The walls were made of rammed clay and timber, a technique typical of Tang-era Chinese and Uyghur architecture, not Siberian traditions. Inside the compound were courtyards, pavilions, corridors, and tiled roofs, a design that mirrored the imperial palaces of China more than any northern fortress. This architectural puzzle led many scholars to theorize that Por-Bajin might have been a summer palace for the Uyghur Khagan, built to impress and symbolize dominance. Others saw it as a religious monastery, possibly built after Bayanchur converted to Manichaeism, a religion that flourished briefly in the Uyghur court under Chinese influence. But whatever its purpose, one fact is undeniable: Por-Bajin was never completed or inhabited for long. Carbon dating and structural analysis reveal that the fortress was likely destroyed by fire shortly after completion. Burnt clay bricks, charred wooden beams, and collapsed roof tiles tell of a massive blaze that swept through the complex. Yet the absence of weapons skeletons or signs of conflict indicates no battle ever occurred. Geological evidence points to a catastrophic earthquake soon after the site was finished. Por-Bajin sits directly atop a seismic fault line near the Altai mountain range. Around the 8th or 9th century, a major tremor may have fractured the frozen ground beneath the lake, causing liquefaction of the permafrost. The land cracked, water surged, and the fortress was literally swallowed by the earth it stood on. In the aftermath, the area would have been devastated. The lake likely expanded, flooding the lower levels of the complex. Survivors, if there were any, would have fled. Within years, the site would have become uninhabitable, surrounded by rising waters and unstable terrain. Over time, Por-Bajin transformed from a proud fortress into an island ruin, a ghost of stone and clay, adrift in a mirror of ice. If Por-Bajin truly belonged to the Uyghurs, why is it never mentioned in any known chronicle or inscription? The Uyghur Empire was known for its meticulous record-keeping, yet no Chinese or Uyghur text describes a palace on Lake Tericol. Was it an unofficial retreat, a failed experiment, or perhaps a spiritual sanctuary meant to be hidden from the world? The very precision of its layout raises further questions. The fortress aligns almost perfectly with solar and lunar directions, suggesting astronomical or ritual intent. Its main gate faces due east, directly toward the sunrise at the summer solstice. Some researchers now believe Por-Bajin may have been constructed according to cosmological principles, a symbolic temple of light, reflecting the Uyghurs' synthesis of Central Asian and Chinese spiritual ideas. And yet it was gone before it could ever serve its purpose. The fire and seismic destruction seemed to have been so sudden that no repairs were attempted, no records written, no reoccupation made. It was as if the site was cursed, built at the wrong place at the wrong time. Modern scientists studying the ruins have found the clay walls astonishingly well preserved due to permafrost conditions. Beneath layers of snow and frost, even the color of the paint and wood patterns remain visible. But these same frozen conditions now threaten the site's survival. As Siberia warms under climate change, the permafrost is melting, and the once solid foundations are slowly sinking into the lake. Satellite data show that the island on which Por-Bajin stands has moved several meters in the past decades due to shifting sediments and melting ground. Cracks are widening, walls are collapsing, and parts of the fortress have already slid beneath the waterline. Ironically, the same geological forces that doomed it 1,000 years ago are returning and may erase it completely in our lifetime. To prevent total loss, Russian archaeologists and engineers launched a preservation project using drones, LiDAR scanning, and digital mapping to recreate Por-Bajin virtually before it disappears. The site has since become a living laboratory for the study of climate history and disaster. What truly captivates researchers is the symbolic tragedy of Por-Bajin's fate. Built during the Uyghur Empire's peak, it represented the union of nomadic power and settled architectural ambition, a vision of order in the wild. But within a generation, both the fortress and the empire that built it collapsed. The Uyghur Khaganate fell in 840 CE after invasions and internal revolt. Its cities burned, its temples looted, its memory scattered. Por-Bajin, isolated and forgotten, became the perfect metaphor for impermanence, a place that rose with grandeur and perished in silence. Today, standing on its icy shores, one can still feel that haunting sense of fragility. The clay walls cracked by frost whisper of a people who tried to master both nature and faith and lost to both. Locals of Tuva whisper that Por-Bajin is not dead. They tell of strange lights hovering above the ruins on calm nights, pale glows like drifting lanterns. Pilots report compasses spinning wildly near the island, and geologists note faint electromagnetic anomalies in the lake bed. Whether these are caused by minerals, magnetite deposits, or something more mysterious, no one knows. But the myth endures that Por-Bajin still holds an ancient power trapped beneath its scorched clay. Por-Bajin remains one of the world's great unsolved riddles, a place that seems to have slipped through the cracks of history. Built by hands we can name, yet with a purpose we cannot define. Destroyed by forces we can measure, yet at a moment no one recorded. Was it an imperial dream, a monastery of light, or a forbidden experiment in sacred architecture? Whatever the truth, its story is one of brilliance and loss of human ambition, reaching beyond the stability of Earth itself. As the winds of Tuva sweep across the frozen lake, they carry the same echo that has haunted this place for over 12 centuries, a whisper from the past asking why it was built and why it had to vanish so soon. Amid the vast desert of northern Peru's coastline, where dry winds sweep across sun-scorched hills and grains of salt glimmer in the air, lies an ancient complex that has confounded archaeologists, astronomers, and historians for more than 2 millennia. This is Chankillo, believed to be the oldest solar observatory in the Americas, and at the same time, one of humanity's most intriguing enigmas. The silent stone ruins scattered across this barren landscape tell the story of a vanished civilization and hold within them a body of astronomical knowledge far ahead of its time. Yet their true purpose remains a mystery. What do you think really happened at Chankillo? Was it built purely as an ancient solar observatory, or could it have been a sacred fortress where priests once worshipped the sun? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you believe this mysterious place was truly meant for. Located in the coastal desert near the Kasma River, about 370 kilometers north of Lima, Chankillo astonished scientists upon its discovery in the 20th century. The entire complex spans more than 4 square kilometers, consisting of a hilltop fortress, 13 stone towers, aligned north to south, 2 observation points, and surrounding ceremonial areas. Though eroded by time, the overall design still exhibits remarkable precision, as if shaped by both scientific insight and spiritual devotion. From afar, the 13 towers rise from the golden sands like the teeth of the sun. They are not random piles of stone, but a colossal timekeeping machine. Each tower marks a specific position of the sun as it rises and sets throughout the year. On the summer solstice, the sun rises over the northernmost tower. On the winter solstice, over the southernmost. Between those dates, the shifting light passes through each gap like a celestial calendar, signaling the rhythm of the seasons. This monumental structure, built around the 4th century BCE, nearly 1,500 years before the Inca Empire, is a masterpiece of prehistoric engineering. Archaeological studies show that the builders of Chankillo were able to precisely track solstices and equinoxes, the longest and shortest days of the year. They not only observed, but understood the solar cycle, using it to organize agriculture rituals and religious festivals. But what makes Chankillo extraordinary is not just its astronomical sophistication, it is the enduring mystery of its true purpose. Why would a civilization, more than 200-300 years ago, dedicate such enormous effort to create a site that is part fortress, part observatory, and part temple? Was it merely a scientific instrument, or did it embody something deeply spiritual, perhaps even political? Amid the arid Kasma Desert, Chankillo stands out with its 13 stone towers and central fortress, a strange structure that embodies both religious significance and clear defensive features. At the hilltop, the fortress is encircled by 3 concentric walls, complete with gates, narrow corridors, and watchtowers, elements typical of military architecture. Yet inside these walls lie altars, small chambers, and ritual traces such as ashes and mysterious carvings, leading many to believe that this was once a ceremonial center dedicated to the sun god. What's remarkable is that the entire complex is precisely aligned with the sun's trajectory, allowing the ancients to track sunrise and sunset through each tower throughout the year. The combination of astronomical precision and defensive design has left archaeologists divided. Was it a ritual observatory, a sacred fortress, or perhaps a symbol of priestly power? It's possible that Chankillo served not a single function, but rather stood as a crossroads of science, faith, and politics, reflecting the profound belief of ancient people in the divine power of the sky. Another hypothesis suggests that Chankillo was not only a religious center, but also a political instrument of control. In many ancient Andean societies, rulers were revered as children of the sun, divine beings, granted authority by celestial power. If this is true, Chankillo may have been the stage for royal solar ceremonies, where the elite demonstrated their sacred bond with the sun god. Possessing knowledge of the heavens meant possessing control over time harvests and the rhythm of life itself. Thus, Chankillo may have functioned as more than an observatory. It could have been a monument of divine kingship, where science, religion, and governance merged into one. One of the most mysterious aspects of Chankillo is that no one knows who built it. By the time the Inca civilization emerged, the site had already been abandoned for centuries, leaving no trace of a language, people, or culture that might have succeeded it. All that remains are fragments of pottery, bronze tools, and remnants of ancient altars, faint whispers from a world long forgotten. Many walls still bear black scorch marks and signs of deliberate destruction, suggesting that some kind of catastrophe may have occurred, perhaps a religious war or a symbolic act of self-destruction when faith itself collapsed. Other theories propose that natural disasters, drought, or climate change forced its inhabitants to leave, surrendering the site to sand and wind. Whatever the cause, Chankillo still stands silent in the desert, a vanished chapter of human history, written only in the language of the stones that remain. At dusk, in the Chasma Desert, the crimson light of the setting sun slides behind the final tower, piercing through the gaps in stone, a ritual frozen in time. To witness it is to glimpse into the mind of a civilization long gone, as if the priests of Chankillo still perform their solar ceremony every evening thousands of years later. The towers remain silent, yet eloquent. Their precision speaks louder than words. Even with telescopes and satellites, modern science can only marvel at how these ancient builders turned a barren hill into a cosmic clock aligned perfectly with the heavens. Even after more than 2 millennia, Chankillo continues to puzzle scientists as its true purpose has never been fully determined. Some scholars believe it was the first solar calendar in the Americas used by ancient people to track the seasons and conduct agricultural rituals. Others see it as a temple of the sun, a sacred site where humans connected with the divine through ceremonies aligned with celestial movements. Another theory suggests it was a symbol of divine authority, where solar priests ruled through astronomical knowledge. Whatever the case, Chankillo stands as proof that for ancient civilizations, science and faith were inseparable, intertwined in their quest to understand the meaning of existence. In 2021, UNESCO declared the Chankillo Solar Observatory a World Heritage Site, calling it a masterpiece of ancient human ingenuity. Its 13 towers stand as a timeless reminder that humanity in every age has looked to the heavens in search of truth. Even now, as archaeologists brush the sand from each stone and shard, one question lingers. Was Chankillo the creation of ancient astronomers, or a sacred temple where humans communed with the sun? Perhaps the answer lies buried forever beneath the desert sands. Or perhaps the sun itself, the deity they worshipped, still keeps the secret. Hidden among the forested slopes and misty ridges of the Balkan mountains lies one of Europe's least understood prehistoric legacies, the megalithic tombs scattered across Bulgaria, Serbia, North Macedonia, Greece, and Romania. These colossal stone structures, built long before the written word, stand as silent witnesses to an age that modern science still struggles to comprehend. The tombs are monumental, precise, and curiously aligned with the heavens. But among all their mysteries, engineering, age, and purpose, the most baffling of all is something invisible, the strange energy that seems to pulse from the stones themselves. What do you think about the mysterious energy said to emanate from these ancient tombs? Is it a natural phenomenon, or could it be evidence of an ancient knowledge long forgotten? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Archaeologists have long been puzzled by how early societies could have constructed these tombs without advanced tools. Massive slabs weighing tens of tons were somehow transported over mountains, lifted and positioned with millimetric precision. Many of these dolmens consist of perfectly balanced capstones, supported by upright pillars, forming chambers large enough to stand inside. When modern engineers examined them, they discovered that some of the joints fit together so tightly that not even a knife blade could slip between the stones. This extraordinary craftsmanship is already astonishing, but the mystery deepens when instruments begin to react strangely around the sites. In several Balkan locations, researchers, tourists, and even geophysicists have recorded anomalous electromagnetic readings. Compass needles whirl unpredictably near certain dolmens. Metal detectors malfunction. Mobile phones lose signal only to recover when moved a few meters away. Sensitive magnetometers reveal localized distortions of the Earth's magnetic field around the structures. These are not isolated incidents. The phenomenon has been observed repeatedly from the megalithic complexes of Stranja Mountain in southeastern Bulgaria to the stone chambers of the Rhodope Range further west. Some attribute these effects to natural causes, perhaps underground metallic ores, fault lines, or trapped piezoelectric charges within the granite. But others suspect something more deliberate. The placement of the stones often corresponds with geomagnetic nodes and ley line intersections, suggesting the builders understood Earth's energy flows and may have intentionally positioned their monuments to harness them. This idea, though controversial, is gaining traction among researchers who study archaeoenergetics, a field exploring how ancient architecture interacted with the planet's electromagnetic environment. Local legends speak of a strange power surrounding the Balkan megaliths. Shepherds feel dizzy near them, compasses lose direction, and animals avoid the stones at night. Some visitors sense a vibration or tingling when they touch the rock, an unseen force that seems alive. To locals, these are sacred spots of power where the Earth's energy flows and the veil between worlds grows thin. Ancient people, they believe, built these monuments as gateways for the soul, allowing it to travel through invisible currents toward the stars. Modern scientists approach the reports of strange energy around the Balkan megaliths with great caution, yet experimental measurements reveal something truly unusual. In 2018, a Bulgarian geophysical team conducted a survey at the Hljabovo dolmen, one of the oldest and most intact megalithic tombs, and discovered anomalous fluctuations in magnetic intensity that could not be linked to any electrical source or nearby metal deposits. Instruments recorded variations reaching several microteslas, strong enough to disrupt compasses and potentially influence biological systems. Even more strikingly, these fluctuations intensified during sunrise and sunset, precisely when sunlight passed directly through the tomb's entrance. Some experts believe this was not a coincidence, suggesting that the ancient builders may have deliberately chosen the site and orientation to harness the intersection of sunlight, Earth's magnetic field, and natural geothermal energy, a sophisticated interaction that modern science is only beginning to understand. This connection between light orientation and energy is striking. Many of the Balkan tombs are deliberately aligned toward the equinox sunrise or the solstice sunset, echoing other ancient observatories such as Stonehenge or Newgrange. Was this alignment merely symbolic, or did it serve a technical function, channeling electromagnetic or telluric energy amplified by solar radiation? Some researchers believe that the megaliths acted as resonant chambers capable of focusing Earth's natural frequencies. The rough inner surfaces, combined with the exact proportions of the chambers, may have been designed to enhance acoustic or vibrational effects during rituals. When drums or chants were performed inside, the resonance could have created a trance-like experience, one that ancient people interpreted as communion with the gods. There are, of course, alternative interpretations. The energy anomalies might stem from the geological composition of the Balkans themselves. The region sits atop complex fault systems, where tectonic stress occasionally produces electrical discharges or magnetic pulses, a phenomenon known as earth lights. In this scenario, the builders could have sensed the unique energy of these places and chosen them intuitively, not understanding the physics, but feeling the power. Either way, the coincidence is extraordinary. The tombs consistently occupy spots where natural forces seem to converge. This interplay between stone earth and unseen energy gives the Balkan tombs an atmosphere unlike any other megalithic site in Europe. While the pyramids of Egypt and the stone circles of Britain inspire awe through grandeur, the dolmens of the Balkans exude something more subtle, a living presence, as if the ground itself hums with the memory of its builders. Visitors often describe the sensation as standing in a place that remembers. Beyond their mysterious energy, the tombs reveal an advanced understanding of geometry and astronomy. Each chamber follows a deliberate ratio. Each entrance points toward a celestial event. Carbon dating places many of them between 5000 and 4000 BCE, older than the pyramids of Giza. Their builders, perhaps the ancestors of the Thracians or an even older lost civilization, must have possessed knowledge of engineering and observation far beyond what mainstream archaeology credits to Neolithic Europe. Yet, despite decades of research, no definitive answers have emerged. Excavations reveal pottery shards, ash, and sometimes human remains, but the purpose of the structures remains ambiguous. Some contain no bodies at all, suggesting they may have served ritual or symbolic purposes rather than funerary ones. If so, the word tomb may be misleading. These might instead have been energy sanctuaries built to interact with the invisible forces of the earth, guiding spiritual transformation rather than physical burial. This idea, once dismissed as pseudoscience, has recently gained attention from physicists exploring low-frequency electromagnetic anomalies in ancient sites. Measurements at megalithic monuments worldwide from Malta to Karnak show similar fluctuations in geomagnetic activity. The Balkan tombs fit this pattern, perfectly reinforcing the hypothesis that prehistoric builders selected specific energetic hotspots long before modern instruments could detect them. What remains astonishing is how consistently these sites inspire the same emotional response. Whether believer or skeptic, few can stand among the Balkan stones without feeling something indescribable, a pressure in the air, a hum in the ears, a sense of time slowing. It is as though the monuments were designed not only to endure physically, but to communicate across millennia using energy instead of words. Today, scientists, mystics, and explorers continue to visit the Balkan mountains, seeking to unravel the code embedded in these megaliths. Are they remnants of a forgotten science, an understanding of the Earth's magnetic field that modern civilization has only begun to rediscover, or are the strange energies nothing more than natural quirks amplified by human imagination? The debate remains unresolved. Perhaps that is the true power of the Balkan megaliths, a reminder that not everything can be measured or explained. Beneath our feet still hums the heartbeat of an ancient world carved into stone thousands of years ago. When you stand before those colossal rocks, you can almost feel it, a faint pulse, timeless and alive. They are not mere tombs, but machines of mystery, resonating with energies that neither science nor myth can yet define. Amid the arid expanses of Syria's desert, where sand and stone stretch endlessly to the horizon, lie strange lines carved into the earth thousands of years ago. From the ground, they are almost invisible, just low stone walls scattered across the sands. But from the air, their true form appears giant kites two long stone arms converging into a V-shaped point, sometimes ending in a funnel or tail. British pilots in the 1920s were the first to see them from above and name them desert kites. More than a century later, their true purpose remains one of archaeology's greatest enigmas. What do you think these ancient desert kites were really built for? Massive hunting traps, sacred symbols, or something far beyond our understanding? Share your theory in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Stretching across the Middle East from Syria, Jordan, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia to the distant Sinai Peninsula, the desert kites appear like a colossal artwork carved into the sand. Each structure can extend up to 5 to 10 kilometers, formed from hundreds of meters of low stone walls, meticulously connected into V-shaped funnel-like or spiral patterns with astonishing precision. Archaeologists have discovered thousands of such constructions, most of which share an almost identical design, suggesting that a common architectural prototype was repeatedly used over millennia. What's truly remarkable is that all of these were built during the Neolithic period around 9000 to 5000 BCE, when humans had yet to master metallurgy or construct major cities. To create such vast and geometrically perfect shapes amid the harsh desert, ancient builders must have possessed advanced knowledge of terrain, wind direction, solar alignment, and collective labor organization, far beyond what was once believed possible for nomadic societies. Yet what baffles scientists the most is not how they accomplished it, but why they did it at all. The most widely accepted theory suggests that the desert kites were enormous hunting traps meticulously designed by ancient peoples with remarkable precision. Their two long stone arms stretch wide across the desert, gradually narrowing toward a central area, a funnel-shaped enclosure or stone corral, likely used to capture or slaughter gazelles, antelopes, or Asiatic wild asses. Constructing such vast systems would have required the coordination of hundreds of people, implying a highly organized society capable of strategic planning and effective use of the landscape. However, this theory soon reveals major inconsistencies. Many of these kites have been found in regions completely devoid of animal traces or water sources, making large-scale hunting highly improbable. Others exhibit spiral, circular, or branching shapes structurally unsuitable for traps. This diversity of forms has led archaeologists to question, were these truly built for hunting, or did they serve a deeper purpose, perhaps ritual, astronomical, or even as messages carved into the earth and sent toward the sky? Some anthropologists believe that the desert kites were not merely hunting structures, but carried profound ritualistic and religious significance. In many ancient cultures, hunting was not only a means of survival, but also a sacred ceremony symbolizing harmony between humans' nature and their divine protectors. These enormous kites stretching across the desert may once have served as ceremonial grounds where tribes gathered to offer animal sacrifices to pray for rain-fertile seasons or protection from the sun and desert gods. Interestingly, many desert kites are aligned with the sunrise and sunset during solstices or with the paths of prominent constellations, suggesting they may have functioned as primitive observatories while also serving a symbolic purpose, prayers carved into the earth and sent toward the heavens. The perfect symmetry and repetitive geometry of each structure reveal that the builders did not act randomly. They may have regarded the arrangement of stones across the desert as a sacred act, a monumental form of art created to honor the cosmic order itself. Some archaeologists believe that the desert kites might once have served as ancient navigation maps, a vast system of landmarks guiding travelers across the harsh desert. In an era when crossing the sands could mean life or death, These kilometer-long stone walls may have acted as compasses for caravans or migrating groups. The openings of many kites align precisely with valleys' oases or ancient animal migration corridors, suggesting they were not built randomly. Yet the great question remains, why were they made so enormous? Their scale far exceeds any practical need for orientation. Perhaps these constructions were not just guides, but symbols of communication between tribes or even a silent language carved into the desert, meant for the gods above, rather than for humankind. Archaeologists report that the stone walls of the kites stand only 0.5 to 1 meter high, yet they extend for kilometers. Despite their low height, they were precisely aligned and have endured for millennia. In some areas, multiple overlapping layers of walls indicate reconstruction and expansion over generations, proof of technical tradition and social organization. This raises the question, were the builders ordinary nomads, or were they part of a now-lost civilization capable of orchestrating massive communal projects long before writing existed? If so, the desert kites could be the remnants of a forgotten prehistoric culture, one that possessed a deep understanding of geography, astronomy, and ecology. Today, with satellites and drones, scientists can map the entire network of desert kites across the Middle East. The data reveal non-random distribution patterns, often aligned with wind corridors or animal migration paths, suggesting careful planning. Yet no single theory fits all. Some kites seem ritualistic, others practical or social, and a few appear to combine both. Every time archaeologists think they are close to an explanation, a new kite is discovered with a completely different form, overturning previous ideas. The question, what were they really for, remains unanswered. Whatever their purpose, the desert kites stand as monuments to human imagination and intellect. They reveal the creativity of people who had no metal, no maps, no instruments, yet shaped the land into gigantic geometric forms of near mathematical precision. In the stillness of the desert, the kites remain weathered by time, yet undefeated. Perhaps they are a message from humanity to the cosmos, an ancient language our science still cannot read. Maybe the true wonder lies not in the answer, but in the mystery itself, a testament to the endless curiosity of humankind and the silent dialogue between earth and sky. The desert kites are not merely archaeological curiosities, they are mirrors of early human intellect and belief. They might be traps, observatories, or sacred symbols, or all of these at once. But one thing is certain, every kite tells a story of connection between humans, the earth, and the heavens, a story still buried beneath centuries of sand, waiting for us to understand. Deep in the Andean highlands of Peru, near the modern city of Ayacucho, lies the silent ruin of one of the most remarkable civilizations in pre-Columbian South America, the Wari city complex, or Huari. From a distance, it may appear as little more than a maze of weathered walls and sun-baked stones. But beneath this desolate surface lies the ghost of an empire, a city that once pulsed with life organization, faith, and power. Today, it stands as one of archaeology's most haunting enigmas, a civilization that mastered urban planning, governance, and architecture centuries before the Incas, yet vanished without leaving a trace. What do you think truly caused such an advanced civilization like the Wari to vanish almost overnight? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The Wari civilization flourished between 600 and 1100 CE, rising in the heart of the Central Andes, when most of the world was still emerging from the Dark Ages. The city of Huari was its crown jewel, a massive administrative capital that stretched across nearly 2,000 hectares. It was here that the Wari built an intricate network of government, religion, and infrastructure, a system so advanced that later generations, including the Inca, would borrow heavily from its design. Archaeologists describe Wari as one of the first true cities of the Andes. Its streets were laid out in an organized grid, its quarters divided by high stone walls, and its buildings constructed with surprising geometric precision. Beneath the surface ran water channels and drainage systems carefully engineered to withstand floods and earthquakes. To walk through the ruins today is to glimpse an ancient version of urban intelligence, a civilization thinking collectively, not just surviving, but governing. The Wari were not a loose collection of tribes. They were administrators, engineers, and strategists. The city functioned as a hub of bureaucracy, religion, and military power. From Wari radiated a network of roads stretching across the mountains and deserts of Peru, a precursor to the Incas' famed road system centuries later. Every sign points to a culture that believed in order. Agricultural terraces spiraled along the hillsides. Irrigation canals captured every drop of mountain water. Vast warehouses stored food, textiles, and weapons. Within these compounds lived priests, officials, soldiers, and artisans, each serving a role in what might be called the first Andean state. Their religion, too, was woven into this system. The Wari worshipped gods of the earth, the sun, and the rain forces of fertility and balance that sustained their mountain world. Ceremonial plazas and temples were arranged with celestial precision, suggesting a belief that architecture itself could communicate with the divine. What remains today of Wari is a city of shadows, low rectangular walls, and labyrinthine corridors of stone and adobe. Yet these modest remnants conceal astonishing sophistication. Many structures were earthquake-resistant, built with layered materials that flexed under seismic stress. Some rooms were sealed entirely, as if preserving something sacred or forbidden within. In certain areas, archaeologists have discovered underground chambers, hidden vaults, tunnels, and crypts that point to ritual or administrative secrecy. Others appear to have been storage complexes, their walls still bearing traces of pigments and symbols, silent records of a vanished bureaucracy. Beneath the city, another world awaits. Archaeologists have uncovered dozens of tombs containing mummified remains wrapped in layers of finely woven textiles. The bodies are often found sitting in fetal positions, hands covering their faces, a pose suggesting both rebirth and reverence. The Wari were masters of mummification, using the cold, dry climate of the Andes to preserve flesh and bone. Some skulls show signs of surgical trepanation, ancient brain operations that may have been part of healing rituals or spiritual practices. Their tombs hold ceramics painted with vivid imagery, warriors, gods, and scenes of cosmic order. Each discovery adds to the picture of a society deeply spiritual, yet also disciplined, hierarchical, and aware of its fragility in the harsh Andean environment. Around the 11th century CE, the Wari Empire, once one of the most advanced civilizations of the Andes, suddenly vanished, leaving behind an unsettling silence. There were no signs of war, no burned fortresses, no evidence of famine or plague. Just a century earlier, Wari had been a thriving capital with tens of thousands of inhabitants. A century later, it was nothing more than cold walls and sealed doors. Archaeologists discovered temples that had been deliberately closed, storage chambers emptied, and buildings that appeared to be intentionally sealed, as if the Wari people had performed a farewell ritual to their own civilization. The question of why they disappeared remains one of South America's greatest archaeological mysteries. Some theories suggest that severe droughts caused by climate change led to water scarcity and failed harvests, forcing people to scatter in search of survival. Others suspect internal conflict and administrative collapse as distant provinces broke away from centralized control. A few scholars even propose a more spiritual reason that the Wari believed Wari had lost its sacred essence, and abandoning it was a way to restore cosmic balance with their gods. What is most astonishing is that Wari did not fall to violence. It was abandoned in order, as if an entire people had collectively chosen to withdraw into the shadows, leaving behind a perfectly intact but empty city. Centuries later, when the Inca Empire rose to power, echoes of the Wari still lingered. The Incas inherited their road systems, administrative structures, and even religious frameworks. Many Inca cities, including Cusco, reflect Wari's rectangular layouts and layered construction. The Wari, it seems, did not vanish entirely. They transformed their legacy, absorbed into the empires that followed. Yet to this day, Wari itself remains mysterious. Only a fraction of the site has been excavated. Beneath its layers of dust and stone may lie royal tombs, libraries of artifacts, or even evidence of the final days of the empire. The city holds its secrets tightly, as if guarding the truth about what truly happened at the twilight of the Wari world. It is easy to think of the Andes as the land of the Incas, but long before Machu Picchu was built, the Wari were already experimenting with statecraft urban design and social order. They were the first to prove that a unified Andean empire was possible. They were the first to build roads that linked the mountains to the coast, and the first to create cities based on administrative zones rather than kinship groups. Their disappearance, therefore, is not just a local mystery, it is a civilizational paradox. How could a culture so advanced, so organized, so enduring, vanish so completely? Amid the silent corridors of Huari, it feels as if time itself has stopped. The city is neither dead nor alive, merely waiting beneath centuries of dust. Each excavation reveals a shard of pottery or a sealed wall, yet the more we uncover, the less we understand. Perhaps the Wari did not fall, but quietly withdrew, leaving their city as a message that every empire will one day return to the earth. The Wari city complex is not just an archaeological site. It is a philosophical question carved in stone. What makes a civilization thrive, and what causes it to walk away from its own greatness? Every buried chamber, every sealed doorway challenges our understanding of how societies rise and fall. And perhaps that is the real legacy of Huari, not the empire it built, but the silence it left behind. When the sarcophagi of ancient Egypt were first opened by modern archaeologists, some of the bodies revealed an unexpected sight. Instead of the familiar linen wrappings and golden masks, a few mummies appeared entirely bathed in a dark, glistening red. Their skin and bandages had fused into a hardened layer, like they were dipped in molten amber or blood turned to stone. The material had the sheen of resin, the weight of bitumen, and the mystery of an ancient formula lost to time. At first glance, this red substance seemed to be just another variation in mummification practice. But as scientists began to analyze it, they realized that it was unlike anything else ever found in Egyptian tombs. It wasn't paint, it wasn't a stain. It was a complex chemical compound engineered with precision that modern chemistry still struggles to replicate, and no one knew why only certain mummies were coated in it. If the ancient Egyptians truly possessed a chemical formula far ahead of their time, where do you think they learned it from? From nature, from other civilizations, or from a kind of knowledge we've completely lost? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The story of the red resin mummies begins during the New Kingdom period, roughly 300 years ago, when Egyptian embalming had reached its peak. Normally, bodies were anointed with oils wrapped in linen and sometimes brushed with a yellow or brown resin. But in rare cases, like the so-called Red Lady of Akhmim or a few high-status burials near Thebes, the entire body was sealed beneath a thick crimson coating that looked almost ceremonial. When researchers from the British Museum and the University of Manchester examined these bodies under spectrometers and scanning microscopes, what they found was extraordinary. The coating wasn't a single substance, but a layered mixture, an intentional blend of multiple organic and mineral materials, forming a durable armor against decay. The typical ingredients detected were conifer resin from pine or cedar trees, likely imported from the Levant, bitumen or natural asphalt, a black hydrocarbon-based material used in waterproofing, beeswax acting as a binder and stabilizer, plant oils possibly from castor or moringa, and most curiously, iron oxides such as hematite and red ochre, the very compounds that gave the resin its deep blood-like hue. Yet when chemists attempted to reproduce the exact combination in laboratory conditions, something didn't add up. The ratios varied wildly between specimens. Some had high traces of copper or manganese. Others contained mysterious organic compounds that didn't correspond to any known botanical source in Egypt's environment. The red resin's chemical fingerprint was in short inconsistent, but intentionally so. It suggested that each batch was prepared individually, following recipes passed down through secret traditions, perhaps guarded by temple priests or royal embalmers. In ancient Egypt, chemistry was more than science. It was sacred transformation. The embalmers called their art chemia, the root word of our modern term alchemy. To preserve a body wasn't merely to stop decay. It was to transmute flesh into eternity. The red resin in this context could be seen as the ultimate expression of that philosophy, a material born from fire resin and earth binding the mortal and the divine. When applied hot, it would seep into the linen layers, sealing them completely. As it cooled, it hardened into a smooth, rock-like crust that protected the body from moisture and bacteria. But the most intriguing aspect lies in its symbolic chemistry. Iron oxides like hematite are the same pigments used to paint amulets of Isis and Ra. In Egyptian mythology, red represented both life force and danger, the color of the desert of the sun and of blood. By coating the dead in red, the embalmers might have been giving them the essence of life itself, ensuring their rebirth in the afterworld of Osiris. However, that interpretation faces a paradox. The red resin isn't found in all elite burials. Some kings and queens were embalmed traditionally without any trace of it. So why did certain individuals, often priests, nobles, or mysterious unnamed figures, receive this crimson treatment? Some scholars propose that the resin formula was reserved for those associated with solar cults, or even for individuals who played ritual roles connected to resurrection myths. Others believe it was used in response to unusual deaths, as if the embalmers tried to purify the body through an alchemical layer of divine fire. Modern forensic teams have analyzed samples from several museums: the Manchester Museum, Cairo Museum, and Turin Museum, using gas chromatography mass spectrometry, GCMS, and Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy, FTIR. Each time, they've found new surprises. Some samples contained anthracene derivatives, complex aromatic hydrocarbons that should not exist in natural resins without industrial distillation. Others revealed resin acids that degrade quickly under heat, yet here they were perfectly preserved for 3,000 years. The conclusion: whoever prepared the mixture understood the thermal properties of organic materials at a level far beyond what we expected from Bronze Age chemistry. They knew exactly how to combine pine resin with bitumen and wax to create a self-sealing antimicrobial barrier that could endure millennia. Even today, materials scientists marvel at its durability. Unlike other mummification substances that flake away, the red resin remains glossy, solid, and resistant to humidity. It has even been compared to natural polymer composites, something that should have been impossible at the time. Where did the Egyptians learn such chemical mastery? The answer is still hidden. Some historians point to trade routes with the Near East, suggesting that the embalmers imported exotic ingredients, like myrrh or resin, from the Dead Sea region where bitumen was abundant. Others suspect that the recipes were temple secrets encoded in ritual texts that have not survived. Whatever the truth, the red resin stands as a chemical enigma, a testament to an ancient science we barely understand. Among all the known examples, none is more haunting than the Red Lady of Akhmim. Her mummy, discovered in the late 19th century, was entirely covered in a deep scarlet layer that shimmered under light like polished stone. Tests revealed a unique composition: cedar oil, beeswax, bitumen, and large amounts of iron oxide mixed with a resin whose origin could not be identified. The reddish tone was so intense that early archaeologists thought it was cinnabar mercury sulfide, but later tests disproved it. What made her special? Why this formula? Some researchers believe the Red Lady was a priestess of Ra, and that her crimson body symbolized her eternal connection to the sun. Others suggest a more practical theory, that she died far from home, and the resin was used to preserve her body until it could be transported back to Egypt. Yet even that fails to explain the precision of the formula or the reverence implied by its craftsmanship. Her body, like others treated in this manner, was transformed. Not merely preserved, but chemically stabilized, as if embalming had crossed into the realm of synthetic science. For the ancient Egyptians, death was not the end, but a problem to be solved: how to keep the soul bound to the body, cut long enough for rebirth. The red resin may have been their boldest answer, a fusion of tree sap, reaching toward the sun, beeswax, symbolizing renewal, and minerals drawn from the blood of the earth. When poured over the body, it created a being part human, part stone, part symbol, and somehow it endures, defying both time and decay. Despite decades of study, we still can't fully decode the red resin's formula or its meaning. Each mummy tells a slightly different story, chemically unique, spiritually resonant, and scientifically confounding. Was it a chemical armor, a spiritual act, or both? Was it meant to preserve flesh, or to mark a chosen few as semi-divine? Until more texts are unearthed, until we find the lost recipes of the ancient embalmers, the red resin will remain one of Egypt's most haunting mysteries. In the red silence of the tomb, they found immortality, not through words or prayers, but through chemistry. Hidden beneath the rolling hills of central Italy, in the ancient necropolises of Tarquinia Cerveteri and Vulci, lie the tombs of a civilization older than Rome itself, the Etruscans. These burial chambers, carved more than 2,500 years ago, are silent witnesses to a culture both sophisticated and enigmatic. Yet among the countless Etruscan tombs, discovered a few possess a phenomenon so strange, so inexplicable, that it continues to perplex archaeologists and acoustic engineers alike: the whispering galleries. If you stood alone inside an Etruscan tomb and heard a whisper answering from the darkness, do you think it would be just your own echo, or the voice of the past wanting to be heard? Share your thoughts in the comments below. At first glance, these subterranean chambers appear ordinary stone corridors, domed ceilings, and walls adorned with faded frescoes of feasts, dances, and solemn rituals for the dead. But those who have ventured inside often report an uncanny experience. A whisper from one corner of the tomb can be heard clearly, at the opposite end, even though the speaker's voice seems to vanish into the stone. The sound doesn't travel in a straight line. It slides curves and clings to the walls, moving as though the tomb itself were alive, carrying voices through its hollow ribs of stone. This acoustic marvel is not a coincidence of geology. The walls of many Etruscan tombs were sculpted from tufa, a soft, porous volcanic stone, abundant in the region. To the naked eye, tufa appears rough and unrefined, but its internal structure, riddled with microscopic air pockets, gives it an unusual property. It absorbs and reflects sound at the same time. When shaped into a curved chamber, it creates a resonant field that amplifies even the faintest vibration. A single breath or murmur can bounce across the tomb's interior, magnified and warped into a spectral echo. What makes this even more astonishing is that the Etruscans lived during a time when formal acoustic science did not exist. The principles of sound reflection resonance and standing waves would not be described until more than 2 millennia later. And yet, the design of these tombs, with their sloping corridors, domed roofs, and subtle curvature of walls, suggests an empirical understanding of how architecture could shape and manipulate sound. Was this achieved through experimentation, or did the Etruscans possess a deeper, perhaps sacred knowledge of acoustics now lost to time? Modern researchers have attempted to model these tombs digitally using laser scanning and acoustic simulation. The results are startling. Certain chambers demonstrate perfect focal points, spots where sound converges naturally, much like a parabolic reflector. A whisper from one such point can be heard clearly from another, sometimes as far as 10 or 12 meters away. Between these two hotspots, the sound is nearly invisible to the ear, creating the illusion of a disembodied voice traveling through stone. To the Etruscans, this must have carried profound spiritual significance. Their religion was steeped in the dialogue between the living and the dead. Funerary rituals often sought to invoke the ancestors' presence. In such a setting, the whispering effect would have seemed supernatural. Imagine a priest or family member speaking softly to the tomb wall and hearing a faint answering murmur from the darkness beyond. Was it the echo of their own voice or the response of the departed? For a people who believed in the permeability of worlds, the answer may not have mattered. Archaeological evidence supports this ritualistic use. In several tombs, frescoes depict gatherings of musicians with long horns, flutes, and drums, instruments capable of producing low resonant frequencies that could easily interact with the chamber's acoustics. When played in these enclosed spaces, the tones would reverberate for seconds, merging and colliding into a sustained, vibrating hum. The air itself would seem alive. Some archaeologists believe these sounds were intended to bridge the realms, to summon the spirits, or to accompany the deceased on their passage into the afterlife. From a modern perspective, the precision of these designs borders on the impossible. The Etruscans had no written manuals, no treatises on architecture or physics, yet they built spaces that respond like engineered resonators. The curvature of certain ceilings corresponds almost exactly to the radius of acoustic reflection later used in Renaissance cathedrals. It is as if the builders intuitively grasped that geometry could shape not only light and shadow, but sound itself. But how did they do it? The mystery deepens when one considers the variability between tombs. Not every Etruscan burial site exhibits this whispering phenomenon. Some tombs are utterly silent, while others, often those belonging to nobles or high priests, produce an extraordinary resonance. This selective distribution suggests intent. These were not accidental echoes born of random carving. They were crafted experiences tailored to specific individuals or rituals. The tomb was not merely a grave, it was an instrument. Acoustic archaeologist Stefano Giovannoni once described standing in one such tomb at Cerveteri. I whispered, and my voice returned from the darkness slower, deeper, as though someone else was speaking with me. It was not an echo, it was an answer. Such testimonies blur the line between physics and mysticism. Even with modern recording equipment, the effect resists full explanation. The reverberation curves fluctuate unpredictably, producing subtle modulations beyond normal echo behavior. Some frequencies are amplified, while others vanish completely, leaving an audible ghost tone that seems to hover in the air. This peculiarity has drawn the attention not only of archaeologists, but also of physicists and sound engineers. Experiments with 3D sound mapping reveal that the tomb's shapes create standing wave zones, where certain sound frequencies reinforce one another. These zones correspond precisely to areas where ancient visitors might have stood or knelt during rituals. In essence, the architecture guides the participants into positions where the sound feels tangible, pressing against the skin, vibrating through the chest. For ancient worshippers, this sensation could easily be interpreted as the presence of the divine. Adding to the enigma, certain Etruscan inscriptions reference voices of the ancestors or breaths of the hollow earth. Could these be poetic metaphors or literal descriptions of the acoustic experience within the tombs? The line between metaphysics and engineering blurs. If intentional, these whispering galleries represent not only the earliest known manipulation of sound for spiritual effect, but also one of humanity's first experiments in psychological architecture spaces designed to alter consciousness through sensory illusion. Even today, visitors to these tombs describe a palpable sense of unease. The air feels heavy, and each step seems to summon faint murmurs from the past. Sound meters detect low-frequency vibrations around 30-40 Hz frequencies at the threshold of human perception. Known as infrasound, these vibrations can induce anxiety chills and the eerie feeling of being watched. Whether the Etruscans knew this consciously or not, they created spaces capable of evoking awe and fear simultaneously, a perfect emotional backdrop for communing with the dead. When compared to the great structures built centuries later, such as the Whispering Gallery of St. Paul's Cathedral in London or the echoing chambers of the Great Pyramid of Giza, it becomes clear that the Etruscan tombs existed long before them. The sophistication with which they manipulated sound and stone is astonishing. They created perfect acoustic resonance without any mathematical formulas or scientific theories. Did they inherit this knowledge from an even older civilization? Or was it the result of generations of secret experimentation, a language of resonance buried with its creators? The mystery of the Etruscan Whispering Galleries endures. Their design reminds us that true innovation can spring from intuition, from humanity's desire to give voice to the unseen. Though Rome conquered their lands and time silenced their rituals, the whispers never truly died. In the stillness of these tombs, a faint voice seems to answer from the stone itself, a timeless echo proving that even the dead may still speak if we dare to listen. Beneath the thick dust of the southern Iraqi desert, cracked ruins lie silent under the scorching sun, the birthplace of everything. Not Uruk, not Babylon, but Eridu, the first city humanity ever built, more than 7,000 years ago. According to Sumerian legend, when kingship descended from heaven, it was in Eridu. The opening line of the Sumerian king list, forever marking Eridu as the starting point of human history. But Eridu was more than an ancient city. It was a symbol of the meeting between man and God, between land and water, between reality and myth. And at the very moment of its greatest glory, a shadow began to spread, one that would lead the city to a mysterious end, leaving behind a question that no one has ever truly answered. What made the city of the gods vanish into absolute silence? If Eridu truly was the first city ever built, the place where kingship descended from heaven, what do you think caused its mysterious disappearance? Was it a natural disaster, a loss of faith, or something beyond our understanding? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you believe happened to the city of the gods. Eridu was founded around 5400 BCE along the banks of the ancient Euphrates River, where vast marshlands met the edge of the desert. There, for the first time, humans built a true city, complete with temples, dwellings, rituals, and organized governance. At its heart stood the Abzu Temple, regarded as the first temple ever built by humankind, dedicated to the god Enki, a deity of water, wisdom, and creation. In Sumerian belief, Enki was the bringer of knowledge, teaching people how to dig canals, build walls, and carve symbols into clay. Archaeologists discovered 18 layers of construction, stacked atop one another, evidence that Eridu had been rebuilt again and again for millennia. Each layer was a chapter in the evolution of civilization, from humble mud huts to grand temples of baked brick. Eridu was not merely a settlement. It was the first laboratory of human civilization. The name Abzu means House of the Deep Waters, referring to the sacred underground ocean where Enki was believed to dwell. In Sumerian cosmology, the Abzu was the source of all life, and Eridu stood as the gate between humanity and the divine realm. The priests of Eridu were not just worshippers. They were astronomers, hydrologists, and scribes, the first to record the cuneiform script that would shape human history. In this city, the boundary between religion, science, and magic simply dissolved. Legend tells that Ziusudra, the last king of Eridu before the Great Flood, was the only human saved by the gods, the same figure later known in the Bible as Noah. Beneath 2 meters of sediment, archaeologists have indeed found a dense layer of flood-deposited clay, physical evidence that Eridu once faced a cataclysmic deluge. At its height, Eridu was not merely a city, but the religious and political center of all Mesopotamia, the place where humanity first transformed faith and order into the foundation of society. Deep artificial canals were dug to channel water from the Euphrates, sustaining the fertile plains. Temples expanded into vast complexes adorned with baked bricks over 7,000 years old, yet astonishingly durable. Many bricks bore intricate geometric patterns, revealing a level of technical and aesthetic mastery far beyond what one would expect from an early civilization. Archaeologists and modern engineers still wonder, how could the Sumerians achieve such precision with primitive tools? Some scholars see Eridu as the first true model of an organized urban society, while others suggest that the architects of Eridu may not have been entirely human. In Sumerian mythology, they were called the Anunnaki, those who came down from the sky, beings believed to have taught humanity agriculture, construction, and writing, ushering in the very first age of civilization. Around 2000 BCE, Eridu, the sacred city once regarded as the cradle of civilization, was suddenly abandoned. There were no traces of war, no signs of fire, and no evidence of destruction. Everything came to a halt, as if the city's very breath had been taken away overnight. Archaeologists call this phenomenon the Great Silence of Eridu, a moment when the intellectual and spiritual heart of Mesopotamia, which had endured for over 3 millennia, vanished without explanation. Many theories have been proposed. Perhaps the Euphrates River changed its course, leaving the surrounding lands dry and infertile, or perhaps natural desertification made agriculture impossible. Some scholars suggest that the cause lay in religious transformation. As the power of the god Enki waned, people began worshipping other deities in cities like Uruk and Nippur, gradually stripping Eridu of its sacred status. Yet all these explanations seem to touch only the surface of something much deeper. Ancient Sumerian texts record that the gods left Eridu and ascended to the heavens. To the Sumerians, this was not a metaphor, but a real event, a moment when temples fell silent, rituals lost their spirit, and prayers went unanswered. From a symbolic perspective, the fall of Eridu may not have been a natural disaster at all, but rather a rupture of faith, the breaking of humanity's connection with the divine. When that sacred bond was severed, a new age began, the age of human independence, when reason replaced divine rule. And Eridu, once the emblem of divine order, no longer had a place in that world. Today, many scholars refer to Eridu as the Atlantis of Mesopotamia, a city not only buried beneath the sands, but also lost within the shifting consciousness of mankind. For perhaps the fall of Eridu was never merely the story of an ancient city, but a metaphor for the moment humanity stopped looking to the heavens, and the gods, in turn, departed from the earth forever. The final archaeological layers show that the people of Eridu departed calmly. No panic, no violence. They sealed their temples, buried their idols, and disappeared. In the last layer of the Iabzu excavators found a small broken statue, its face eroded, yet its eyes still gazing upward. Was it a symbol of farewell, or a silent message from humanity to the gods that they were ready to walk alone? The death of Eridu was not a catastrophe. It was a ceremony of closure, a deliberate ending, as if the entire city agreed, our purpose has been fulfilled. Today, Eridu is nothing more than low mounds of baked clay and cracked desert soil. Yet each fragment of brick still carries the breath of an age when humanity first learned to organize, to create, and to believe in something greater than itself. Eridu reminds us that every civilization, no matter how magnificent, has both a beginning and an end. It was born from water, grew through faith, and vanished in silence, leaving behind a timeless question. When the gods depart, what will humanity do next? Eridu is not just an archaeological site. It is the memory of humanity's dawn and a warning about the fragility of civilization. Even as we advance through technology and science, the ancient question still echoes through the sands. Perhaps every time humanity forgets the sacred, its cities begin to die from within. When looking at the map of Earth, Antarctica seems like nothing but a vast white void, a place buried under endless snow and silence. Yet beneath the thousands of meters of ice, a mystery has baffled both scientists and the public alike. Pyramid-shaped structures, mountains with 4 perfectly equal sides, standing out amid the frozen plains, resembling man-made monuments of a lost civilization. Images released by Landsat and Google Earth satellites ignited one of the strangest debates of the 21st century. In the Ellsworth Range and Queen Maud Land, researchers spotted several mountain peaks with remarkably symmetrical shapes, 37 to 40-degree slopes astonishingly similar to the Great Pyramid of Giza. These structures stand isolated, not surrounded by any mountain chain, an anomaly in nature. And so the great question arises, how can such pyramid-like structures exist in a land buried under ice for millions of years? If you could uncover the truth behind these Antarctic pyramids and the ice suddenly melted to reveal what's beneath, what do you believe we would find there? Ancient human temples, lost alien technology, or simply the untouched bones of Earth's natural past? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because every theory brings us one step closer to uncovering the frozen secrets of our planet. To understand this mystery, we must look back tens of thousands of years to a time when Antarctica was not locked under ice. Based on ice core analysis and ancient sediment data, many scientists believe Antarctica was once a temperate region. The climate was mild, with forests, rivers, and lush vegetation. A study from the University of Cambridge revealed that the soil beneath East Antarctica's ice sheet contains pollen fossils, wood remnants, and traces of peat, suggesting the continent once hosted a thriving ecosystem. If that's true, the possibility of life and even an ancient civilization is not far-fetched. But what divides scientists is the age of these pyramid-like structures. If they were truly artificial, they would be at least 12,000 years old, meaning they were built long before ancient Egypt existed. Many independent researchers referencing the ancient Piri-Reis map of 1513 believe Antarctica was once free of ice. This map, redrawn from even older sources, depicts Antarctica's coastline with uncanny accuracy, though humanity supposedly hadn't discovered the continent at the time. This suggests the information must have come from a civilization with advanced geographical and maritime knowledge, one that existed before the last ice age began. Geographers ask, if this map truly shows Antarctica without ice, who saw it that way and when? That question opened a floodgate of speculation. Some suggest the Antarctic pyramids are the remaining ruins of that forgotten era, relics of a prehistoric civilization wiped out when the planet's climate changed abruptly. According to Charles Hapgood's Earth crust displacement theory, Earth's entire crust may have shifted thousands of kilometers in just a few millennia, pulling once temperate lands into the polar zone and freezing them forever. If this hypothesis holds any truth, modern Antarctica may have once been a green world, home to humans or another intelligent species. Mainstream geologists insist the pyramids are merely nunataks, mountain peaks protruding through the ice, naturally carved into triangular shapes by wind and glacial erosion. Yet photographs from multiple angles reveal that their sides appear almost perfectly flat, forming sharp intersections, a rarity in nature. Even more intriguing, the ratio of their height to base width closely mirrors that of the Great Pyramid of Giza, aligned to the same golden proportion. Several private expeditions have attempted to reach the area for rock sampling, but all were denied permits under the Antarctic Treaty's Environmental Preservation Clause. Meanwhile, rumors persist that NASA and military research teams conducted unpublicized aerial surveys between 2009 and 2016. Radar data from beneath the ice remain classified, with only partial results released, fueling the belief that something extraordinary lies hidden beneath kilometers of ice. If the Antarctic pyramids were truly man-made, then their builders must have possessed knowledge far beyond what we attribute to any known prehistoric culture. The precision of their geometry, their alignment to cardinal directions, and even the possible correlation between their peaks and Orion's belt suggest a deliberate purpose, not a random coincidence of nature. Some theorists argue that they functioned as astronomical observatories, tracking the movement of stars across a sky that once shone above an ice-free Antarctica. Others believe they were spiritual or energetic hubs designed to amplify Earth's natural electromagnetic fields, perhaps as part of rituals or as sources of unknown power. Traditional archaeology dismisses these claims due to a lack of excavated artifacts or datable remains, yet history reminds us that the line between legend and fact often blurs. Just as Troy emerged from myth beneath the soil of Turkey, the secrets of Antarctica may still lie entombed beneath 3 kilometers of ice, waiting for a time when science dares to look deeper. If a civilization truly existed in Antarctica before the ice, that revelation would upend everything we know about human history. Geological data suggest Antarctica became fully glaciated around 33 million years ago, yet ice core evidence indicates cycles of melting and refreezing occurred repeatedly, especially between 120,000 and 12,000 years ago. If life flourished during that last window of warmth, it could have been obliterated within centuries by sudden climate shifts, much like Doggerland, the once inhabited land now buried beneath the North Sea. Perhaps that catastrophe became the root of the Atlantis myth, a mighty empire swallowed by the sea in a single day and night of misfortune. Could it be that Plato's Atlantis was never in the Atlantic Ocean, but in Antarctica, beneath the ice itself? Major scientific organizations remain cautious. They maintain that these are natural geological formations, yet they simultaneously forbid independent exploration. Why would supposedly harmless ice peaks be guarded so tightly? Why are high-resolution satellite images of the region blurred or removed? Some believe research agencies may have discovered something they cannot yet explain, or something they choose not to reveal, at least not until they can frame it within a logical narrative. Whether true or not, it is that silence itself that makes the mystery all the more compelling. Today, as ground-penetrating radar and 3D mapping technologies advance, scientists hope to see what truly lies beneath the Antarctic ice. Are these mere mountains of stone and snow, or hollow chambers, ancient halls buried in time? Until conclusive evidence emerges, the Antarctic pyramids remain a frontier between science and myth, a place where facts and faith collide, leaving space for the imagination of humankind. Perhaps these pyramid-shaped mountains are simply nature's coincidence, but perhaps they are remnants of a forgotten chapter in Earth's story. Whether natural or artificial, they remind us that Earth is never still. It shifts, transforms, and buries its secrets beneath silent layers of ice. Someday, when technology allows us to peer through thousands of meters of frozen time, the truth may finally emerge. And when it does, we may have to rewrite the entire history of our origins. If you ever set foot on the small Mediterranean island of Malta, you'll notice something that doesn't quite fit the landscape. Across the limestone plains, over the hills, through ancient valleys, and even descending into the sea, run thousands of parallel grooves carved deep into solid rock. They are called cart ruts, but that name hardly does them justice. For these aren't ordinary tracks left by wheels or carts. They are etched into the bedrock itself, forming an intricate network of stone roads that predate recorded history. No one knows who made them. No one knows why. And perhaps most hauntingly, no one knows how old they really are. Who do you think carved these stone roads? Ancient humans, or a civilization that vanished before recorded history? Share your thoughts in the comments below. All across Malta and its sister island Gozo, the rocky surface is scored with what seem like twin furrows, each pair of grooves running side by side like the rails of a prehistoric railway. They meander up and down the island's rugged topography, cutting through ridges, crisscrossing each other at strange angles, and occasionally plunging straight into the sea, as if continuing toward a world now drowned beneath the waves. Each rut is about 1.1 to 1.4 meters apart, and in some places they reach a depth of 60 centimeters. They aren't random. Many follow a distinct orientation, and some even connect to form vast intersections that appear to have once guided something, though what that something was remains one of archaeology's great riddles. When the first European explorers mapped them in the 19th century, they assumed they were wheel ruts, left by wooden carts used to transport stone or goods. But soon, that theory crumbled under its own contradictions. The grooves are far too deep and uneven. Any wooden vehicle would have snapped its axles within meters. Moreover, some of the ruts curve upward at impossible slopes or cross each other at right angles, making them utterly impractical for traffic. It became clear that these lines were not mere marks of industry. They were intentional carvings executed with precision and persistence, as if to shape the very bones of the island itself. Some of the most fascinating examples of these cart ruts appear at Clapham Junction, named after London's busy railway intersection. From a high aerial view, this site looks eerily like the fossilized skeleton of a vanished transportation grid. Yet when you follow one of these roads, it eventually disappears into the Mediterranean. Underwater surveys have confirmed that the grooves continue beneath the waves, vanishing into the depths. That detail changes everything. It suggests that the ruts were carved before the sea level rose, possibly during or even before the last ice age, when the Maltese islands were still connected to mainland Europe. If true, these pre-glacial stone roads could be over 14,000 years old, perhaps older than the pyramids of Egypt or the temples of Sumer. That would make them relics from a world that existed before the dawn of written civilization, a world that was literally drowned as the Ice Age melted away. Archaeologists have proposed countless theories to explain them. Some suggest that heavy sledges or carts loaded with stone once traveled along these tracks, their weight cutting into the soft limestone that later hardened. Others propose that they were ancient irrigation or drainage systems channeling water across farmland. But the shapes tell a different story. The grooves change depth and slope unpredictably, as though they were carved by hand, not worn by motion. In many places, the ruts split and merge again, forming forked paths that resemble ceremonial layouts more than functional roads. Certain patterns even radiate outward from central points like sunburst symbols carved into the island itself, leading some researchers to wonder if these ruts were part of an astronomical or ritual landscape, aligning with the megalithic temples Malta is famous for, such as Gantija and Menidra. No definitive answer has ever been reached. Each hypothesis solves one piece of the puzzle while creating new ones. And so the grooves remain as silent enigma lines on the earth that refuse to explain themselves. The rut surfaces show patterns of weathering far older than the Bronze Age temples nearby. In some locations, sediment has accumulated inside the grooves' layers of compacted material that indicate they existed long before known human habitation on the islands. Geological studies suggest they might date back to a period when the Mediterranean basin's climate was vastly different, possibly even before the end of the last glacial maximum around 18,000 years ago. This has led to a striking idea that these ruts are not merely prehistoric, but pre-glacial, carved by a people who lived before Malta became an island. When the seas were lower, the land between Sicily and North Africa was a continuous plain, fertile, habitable, and rich in limestone. If any advanced human culture existed there, these roads could be the only surviving fingerprints of their world, now lost beneath the Mediterranean. The mystery deepens when you realize Malta isn't alone. Similar stone grooves have been discovered in Sardinia, Sicily, Spain, Libya, and Greece, all scattered across what would have been connected coastal regions during the Ice Age. The patterns, proportions, and even spacing are uncannily similar. Could these have been part of a single maritime civilization using shared techniques or rituals? Some researchers have called it the Mediterranean cart rut culture, a forgotten technological network that predated the great civilizations we know. Yet mainstream archaeology resists such speculation. Officially, the Maltese ruts are still attributed to Bronze Age or even Roman quarrying practices. But that explanation fails to account for those that plunge underwater or cross impossible terrain. If they truly belong to the Roman era, why do they appear beneath geological layers formed thousands of years earlier? Imagine Malta not as an island, but as a high ridge in a wide green plain. Herds of animals roam rivers, carve through valleys, and the Mediterranean is a distant inland lake. Somewhere across this prehistoric landscape, a people nameless to us carve lines into the rock. Were they roads, ritual pathways, astronomical markers? We may never know. But the precision and scale suggest deliberate intent. A project that spanned generations, carried out by minds that understood geometry, terrain, and stone. Then, as the Ice Age ended, the ice sheets melted. The seas rose over 100 meters, swallowing entire coastlines. Whatever civilization had carved those tracks vanished beneath the flood. And the ridges that would become Malta and Gozo remained still, bearing the scars of their handiwork, silent and eternal. Today, tourists can walk along these tracks, placing their feet where ancient tools once cut. Archaeologists measure, debate, and argue, but the grooves keep their secret. Are they human-made relics of a forgotten epoch, or are they natural formations later shaped by human hands? Modern science has yet to offer a consensus. Radiometric dating is almost impossible because the limestone contains no organic matter. Satellite imaging, LIDAR, and underwater mapping have revealed the sheer scale of the network, hundreds of kilometers of parallel lines, some disappearing abruptly at cliffs or under the sea. It's a puzzle that links geology, archaeology, and mythology, hinting at something far older than we dare to imagine. The pre-glacial stone roads of Malta may be a message from a forgotten age, reminding us that human history runs far deeper than what our books reveal. Every pyramid and ancient temple is just one surviving chapter. The rest may still sleep beneath the sea. As the sun sets, those ancient grooves glimmer in the fading light, like fossilized veins of an ancient heart still beating beneath the stone. Hidden beneath the cold, murky waters of the North Sea lies one of Europe's most extraordinary archaeological enigmas, Doggerland. Once a vast land bridge connecting Great Britain to mainland Europe, it now exists only as a ghostly outline on sonar maps and in the fragments of bone tools and memories scattered across the seafloor. Some call it Europe's Atlantis, others call it the lost heart of the Stone Age. But one question continues to echo through the depths of history. Was Doggerland merely a hunting ground, or could it have been a true civilization, a forgotten world erased by the sea? What do you think was Doggerland? Just a land for hunters, or the cradle of a lost civilization beneath the North Sea? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Could there still be secrets buried under the waves, waiting to be discovered? Around 12,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age, the glaciers that once covered northern Europe began to melt. As the ice retreated, vast plains emerged, lush green and teeming with life. Doggerland stretched from what is now the British Isles across the North Sea to the coasts of the Netherlands, Denmark, and Germany. It wasn't a small landmass. It was the size of modern Britain, with rivers winding through forests of birch and pine, freshwater lakes filled with fish, and herds of mammoths, reindeer, and wild horses roaming its meadows. For thousands of years, it was a bridge not only of land, but of culture. People crossed it, settled on it, and built lives on its fertile soil. They hunted, fished, gathered fruits and roots, and likely traded along the ancient rivers that now sleep beneath the waves. Doggerland was in every sense the living center of Mesolithic Europe, the place where the scattered tribes of the north might have mingled and exchanged knowledge long before the rise of agriculture. Archaeological finds dredged from fishing nets tell a vivid story of this vanished world. Stone tools carved with astonishing precision, antler picks shaped by human hands, and fragments of huts made from wood and bone all speak of a people who understood their land intimately. Even more fascinating are the discoveries of ornaments and pigments, suggesting that these early inhabitants had not only practical skills but also aesthetic and spiritual dimensions to their lives. Imagine the daily rhythm of Doggerland, a world where people followed the migrations of animals, gathered along riverbanks under endless northern skies, and perhaps built sacred sites aligned with the stars. These were not primitive beings stumbling through a frozen world, but skilled survivors adapting and thriving in a landscape that was both bountiful and unpredictable. Yet, as the centuries passed, nature began to turn against them. Around 200 years ago, the slow and steady rise of sea levels began to claim Doggerland. The warming of the planet after the Ice Age caused massive floods. Rivers expanded into estuaries. Lowlands became marshes. Villages once set on high ground became islands, then vanished entirely. Then, catastrophe struck. A massive undersea landslide near Norway, the Storegga Slide, triggered a tsunami tens of meters high, which thundered across the North Sea. It smashed into Doggerland's last remaining ridges, drowning forests, people, and animals alike. In a matter of hours, an entire way of life was erased. When the waves retreated, Doggerland was gone. The survivors, if any, would have fled toward higher ground, to Britain, Denmark, or the European mainland, carrying only memories of the paradise that once was. For millennia, Doggerland lay forgotten beneath the seabed until modern times, when fishermen began pulling up strange relics from the deep spear points carved from bone tools shaped from flint, and even human remains. Some bones bore unmistakable cut marks, evidence of butchery and tool-making. Others came from extinct creatures that once roamed the plains. Using seismic surveys and sonar mapping, scientists have reconstructed Doggerland's ancient topography, revealing river valleys, lakes, and coastlines hidden beneath the North Sea. It wasn't a barren seabed. It was a structured landscape, with resources, water systems, and fertile ground, the perfect environment for human society to thrive. Recent breakthroughs in sedimentary DNA analysis have confirmed that Doggerland hosted a rich and diverse ecosystem. Researchers have found traces of ancient plants, animals, and even human genetic material preserved in the mud remnants of life from a world long erased. These genetic signatures link Doggerland's inhabitants to early Mesolithic peoples across northern Europe. Some scientists suggest that the first Britons were descendants of these coastal settlers, migrants who fled westward as their homeland was swallowed by the sea. Thus, Doggerland may not only represent a lost land, but the cradle of early British civilization, a place where culture, innovation, and migration converged thousands of years before written history. This is the question that haunts archaeologists and historians alike. Was Doggerland simply a territory of nomadic hunters, or was it the site of an organized, thriving culture? Traditional definitions of civilization include agriculture, permanent settlements, trade systems, and social hierarchy. By those standards, Doggerland existed just before such complexity arose in the twilight between foraging and farming. Yet the evidence paints a more nuanced picture. Doggerland's geography, its rivers, estuaries, and fertile plains would have made it an ideal incubator for proto-agricultural practices. Archaeologists have found grinding stones and plant residues suggesting that its inhabitants may have experimented with cultivating wild grains. The presence of ornamental artifacts implies symbolic thinking, a sign of social identity and shared belief. Moreover, the very location of Doggerland made it a natural crossroads, connecting people from Scandinavia, the British Isles, and continental Europe. Such an intersection of cultures could have accelerated the exchange of technologies and ideas, perhaps even laying the foundations for later Neolithic societies. So while Doggerland may not fit the modern definition of a civilization with cities and writing, it might have been the seedbed of civilization itself in northwestern Europe, a proto-society whose disappearance left echoes in the myths and collective memory of humanity. It's no surprise that Doggerland has often been compared to Atlantis, Plato's legendary city that sank beneath the sea. Though Doggerland predated the myth by millennia, the parallels are uncanny: a flourishing land, an unexpected flood, and a people lost to history. Some scholars even suggest that ancient oral traditions, tales of lands drowned by the ocean, may trace their origins back to this real prehistoric catastrophe. To the Mesolithic peoples who witnessed the sea swallowing their world, it must have felt apocalyptic, the end of everything they knew. And perhaps those stories of loss and divine punishment traveled across generations, morphing into myths of sunken kingdoms and gods of the deep. Today, a coalition of European scientists, known as the North Sea Paleo Landscapes Project, continues to scan the seabed, mapping the lost rivers and valleys of Doggerland in breathtaking detail. They hope to locate evidence of permanent settlements, burial sites, or ritual structures that could prove once and for all that this was not merely a land of hunters, but a society, a culture, a people with history and memory. Each fragment recovered a flint blade, a mammoth bone, a wooden tool preserved in sediment, adds a piece to the puzzle. But the final picture remains incomplete. The sea guards its secrets well. Doggerland is more than a lost land. It's a warning from history. Once a vast plain linking Britain to Europe, it vanished beneath rising seas, reminding us how fragile civilizations can be. Beneath the North Sea may still lie traces of homes, tools, or even temples, silent witnesses of a forgotten world. Until uncovered, Doggerland remains Europe's enduring enigma, a civilization that may have existed now, surviving only in memory and mystery. For thousands of years, across the vast landscapes of ancient China, villagers would wander into dry riverbeds or dusty cliffs after heavy rains, searching for something extraordinary: fragments of bleached bone emerging from the earth. These relics, polished by time and mystery, were believed to be nothing less than the bones of dragons, the celestial beasts that once soared between heaven and earth. They called them longu dragon bones. Ground into powder and mixed with herbs, these bones were said to calm the heart, still the mind, and chase away malevolent spirits that cause sickness. Apothecaries displayed them in ornate jars, labeling them as medicine for nervous disorders, epilepsy, and insomnia. To the people, this was not superstition. It was sacred pharmacology passed down for centuries through whispers of the mythical past. But behind this sacred practice lay one of the most astonishing archaeological discoveries in modern history, one that would rewrite humanity's understanding of its earliest civilizations. If ancient people truly believed these were dragon bones, not fossils, what does that say about how myth and science intertwine in human history? Share your thoughts in the comments below. In the traditional cosmology of ancient China, dragons were not monsters of fear, but beings of balance and divinity. They controlled rainfall, guarded rivers, and embodied both destruction and renewal. To find a dragon's remains was to touch a fragment of heaven itself. When lightning split mountains or floods unearthed strange white fossils, villagers saw the bones of fallen dragons. Their shapes, immense, curved, and petrified, seemed to defy ordinary explanation. What creature, after all, could have bones thicker than a man's arm or skulls the size of a table? To ancient eyes, these were not relics of biology, they were relics of legend. People believed dragons had fought wars in the sky and fallen to earth during celestial storms. Over generations, the bones of these divine creatures sank into the ground, absorbed by soil and time. When droughts came, villagers interpreted the sudden reappearance of dragon bones as omens of cosmic imbalance, signs that heaven and earth were once again out of harmony. In temple rituals, powdered longu was mixed with rainwater and offered to the gods to appease the dragons. In medicine, it was consumed to absorb their energy, strength, longevity, and peace of spirit. To grind a dragon bone was, in a sense, to consume a fragment of heaven's body. Yet beneath the veil of belief, these sacred remains told another story, one that science would only uncover centuries later. The transformation from myth to discovery began in the late 19th century. Around the year 1899, a Chinese scholar named Wang Yirong, suffering from malaria, sent for traditional medicine. Among the ingredients prescribed by his herbalist were powdered dragon bones. But Wang, a collector of ancient artifacts and an expert in classical Chinese scripts, noticed something that others had overlooked. When he examined the fragments under light, he saw tiny carved symbols marks, too deliberate to be natural cracks. They resembled primitive writing. What Wang had in his hands was not the bone of a dragon, but a fossilized relic bearing the earliest known Chinese script. This chance observation opened the gates to an archaeological revelation. Scholars traced the source of these bones to Anyang in Henan province, where excavations soon uncovered thousands of similar fragments. These became known as the oracle bones relics of the Shang dynasty c. 1600–1046 BCE, used in divination rituals. The dragon bones sold in apothecaries were in fact the fossilized scapulae of oxen and the shells of turtles, carved with inscriptions for communication with gods and ancestors. What made this discovery so compelling was that the myth of the dragon and the science of the fossil had always coexisted. In northern China, fossil beds are rich with the remains of prehistoric mammals, and dinosaurs, mastodons, stegosaurs, and woolly rhinoceroses. These gigantic bones, unearthed by farmers for millennia, naturally inspired tales of dragons and giants. Even during the Han Dynasty, over 2,000 years ago, historical texts mentioned that dragon bones could be found in the mountains of Henan and Gansu, described as bones of divine beasts buried since the Age of Chaos. Modern paleontologists later confirmed that many of these dragon bones were actually real fossils of ancient creatures from the Ice Age and before. The people had not been wrong to feel awe. They were simply interpreting evidence through the lens of myth. The dragon in this light became a symbolic bridge between imagination and prehistory, a myth born from real creatures that once ruled the earth. For thousands of years, Chinese physicians continued to use longu as an essential mineral medicine. Ancient texts, such as the Shenong Bencao Jing, describe its flavor as sweet and astringent, neutral in nature, able to anchor the spirit and calm the soul. The traditional process involved crushing and roasting the fossilized bone, then combining it with herbs to treat restless heart fear and dream disturbance. It was also used for bone fractures and wounds, thought to restore the body's internal harmony, the balance between yin and yang. Modern analysis shows that longu is composed mostly of calcium phosphate and carbonate minerals that indeed support bone healing. Yet its true therapeutic power, to those who used it, lay not in chemistry, but in symbolism, the idea of absorbing a dragon's immortal calm. In rural areas even today, herbalists may still sell powdered fossils labeled as authentic dragon bone. The boundary between ancient ritual and modern science remains remarkably thin. Ironically, it was this very belief in dragons as medicine that preserved one of the greatest treasures of human civilization. Without apothecaries grinding up dragon bones, scholars might never have stumbled upon the oracle scripts that proved the historical existence of the Shang dynasty. Each piece of bone, once destined for a medicine bowl, became a priceless window into a forgotten age. They recorded wars, harvests, sacrifices, dreams, and fears, the heartbeat of a people 3 millennia gone. Yet the mystery endures. Among the thousands of bones unearthed, some inscriptions still defy translation. They may represent lost rituals or even an unknown proto-script remnants of beliefs even older than the dragons themselves. The story of the dragon bones is not merely about medicine or archaeology or myth. It is about how humans interpret the unknown, where modern minds see sediment and fossilization, ancient hearts saw cosmic echoes, the remains of gods. Perhaps both were right in their own ways. For if bones carry memory, then these dragon bones carry the memory of human wonder, the instinct to connect the seen and the unseen. Even now, when archaeologists unearth a fossilized vertebra from a Chinese hillside, the villagers nearby sometimes whisper, "The dragon sleeps again." And maybe that's the truest description of all, for buried beneath the soil lies not just the body of ancient creatures, but the dream of a civilization that once believed the world itself was alive. Buried beneath centuries of desert silence, 2 enigmatic guardians slept forgotten by history, hidden from the world. When archaeologists unearthed them near the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, they did not find mere relics of worship, but a riddle carved in stone. The Dendera sphinxes stood apart from all others in Egypt, smaller than the Great Sphinx of Giza, yet infinitely more precise, their surfaces polished like glass, their symmetry almost mechanical. Who carved them, and with what their granite bodies bear no trace of primitive tools, only the perfection of an artisan who seemed to possess a technology centuries ahead of its time. Some see them as the work of unknown masters, others as remnants of a lost science. But one thing is certain: within their silent gaze lies a mystery that defies every limit of the ancient world. Do you think the Dendera sphinxes were created with lost ancient technology or just unmatched human craftsmanship? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The Dendera sphinxes were unearthed not in a grand necropolis, but in a modest, almost forgotten area near the Temple of Hathor. Their position was peculiar. Both statues were facing east, half submerged, as if someone had deliberately buried them long ago. This concealment was not the result of natural erosion. It looked intentional, as though their makers had wanted them to sleep beneath the desert for ages. Archaeologists were puzzled. Why would such masterpieces be hidden? Why weren't they displayed in full glory within the temple's sacred enclosure? The answer remained elusive, but the mystery only deepened as the statues were examined more closely. Each sphinx bore a face that seemed different. The features were softer, more refined than the rigid style of traditional Egyptian art. The cheekbones were high, the lips narrow, the eyes elongated, evoking not the visage of a pharaoh, but something almost foreign. Some scholars believe these details reflected Greek influence, as Dendera was an active site during the Ptolemaic period when Egypt was ruled by Greek dynasties. But others noticed something unusual. The precision of the sculpting did not match the typical stonework of that time. It was too perfect, as if shaped not by hand tools, but by advanced mechanical means. Under magnification, the symmetry of the carvings appeared almost mathematically flawless. The conclusion was uncomfortable. The Dendera sphinxes might have been created in a much earlier epoch, using methods that we still cannot replicate easily today. What makes the Dendera sphinxes so unique and astonishing is the impossible craftsmanship they display. Both statues were carved entirely from solid granite, one of the hardest materials on Earth, with a hardness of over 6 on the Mohs scale. Even today, working granite requires diamond-tipped tools, immense pressure, and near-perfect precision. Yet thousands of years ago, the ancient Egyptian artisans managed to create mirror-smooth surfaces, graceful curves and edges, sharp as blades, all without leaving any visible tool marks. When sunlight touches their faces, geometric harmony becomes evident, perfectly symmetrical manes, smoothly rounded jaws, and eyes aligned with a margin of error of less than half a millimeter, a feat that even modern machines struggle to achieve. Recent laser scans further confirm an extraordinary precision, far beyond the known capabilities of ancient stonework. So, how with their limited tools and knowledge could people of that era produce works of such flawless, almost non-human perfection? This remains a question that has haunted archaeologists for decades. The mainstream explanation attributes their precision to patient manual labor, using copper chisels, abrasive sand, and time. Yet this theory falls apart under scrutiny. Copper, being softer than granite, could not have produced such fine detail without deforming instantly. Even if sand and water were used as abrasives, the level of control seen on these statues would have required rotational or vibrational cutting, akin to modern ultrasonic or high-frequency tools. A growing minority of researchers, often dismissed as fringe theorists, suggest that the Dendera sphinxes might preserve traces of an ancient high-technology civilization. They argue that these artisans may have harnessed techniques lost to history, sonic drilling, crystalline resonance, or energy-based carving tools capable of disintegrating mineral bonds without physical contact. Skeptical Egyptologists disagree, but even they cannot explain how these flawless cuts and edges were achieved. One expert once remarked, "If we found these exact carvings in a modern factory, no one would question their precision. The only problem is they are 3,000 years too old." Beyond their extraordinary craftsmanship, the Dendera sphinxes also reveal a profound understanding of ancient geometry and optics. When the sun rises over the desert, the first light strikes the statue's eyes, making them appear faintly illuminated, an effect far too precise to be accidental. Astronomical analysis shows that the axis of the two sphinxes is perfectly aligned with the constellation Leo, the sacred symbol associated with the lion in Egyptian mythology. This arrangement was not mere decoration, but a reflection of the ancient belief as above so below, a central idea in Egyptian temple design. From the Great Sphinx of Giza to the corridors of Karnak, the Egyptians built their monuments as mirrors of the heavens, binding humanity to the cosmos. Though smaller in scale, the Dendera sphinxes continue that dialogue, a symbol of harmony between earth and sky, between the physical and the eternal soul. Faint hieroglyphs are carved into the base of one statue, though many are eroded beyond recognition. The surviving words reference the guardian of Hathor, but make no mention of any specific pharaoh or royal title. This is highly unusual. Egyptian art was almost always tied to kingship and divine authority. A statue without a named ruler suggested something else entirely, a spiritual or esoteric function, perhaps known only to initiates of the temple. Some scholars propose that the sphinxes guarded an inner sanctum dedicated not to political power, but to the preservation of secret knowledge, geometry, astronomy, or energy principles encoded in stone. If so, the Dendera sphinxes might not simply represent guardians of a temple, but guardians of forgotten wisdom. Today, fragments of the Dendera sphinxes rest in museums and local collections, but their aura persists. Tourists pass them by without realizing that these silent figures might conceal one of the greatest enigmas of ancient craftsmanship. They remind us that Egypt was not just a land of gods and kings, it was a laboratory of knowledge, where art, science, and spirituality intertwined. What if the Dendera sphinxes are remnants of a lost phase of civilization, one that possessed tools and insights beyond our current comprehension? Could they be evidence that the ancients understood frequencies, vibrations, and materials in ways we are only beginning to rediscover? Despite decades of research, no theory has ever fully explained the mystery of the Dendera sphinxes. Who carved them? What kind of tools could shape such hard granite with near-mechanical precision? Why were these masterpieces buried instead of being venerated? And could there be ancient knowledge hidden beneath the sands that their creators sought to protect? Until these questions are answered, the Dendera sphinxes will remain one of the most haunting enigmas of Egyptian archaeology, challenging both time and human understanding. Perhaps the Dendera sphinxes were not built to honor a pharaoh, but to honor knowledge itself, a symbol of humanity's eternal struggle to understand the universe through art, science, and stone. Beneath the parched earth of Jericho, one of the oldest inhabited cities on Earth, lies a place that continues to challenge everything we think we know about early human civilization. The Rammy tombs of Jericho, discovered carved deep into the limestone hills just beyond the ancient city walls, are not merely burial chambers. They are a riddle carved in stone, a silent testimony to a people who possessed knowledge, precision, and engineering skill that should not have existed in their time. Archaeologists first stumbled upon the tombs in the early 20th century while excavating Bronze Age layers near the Jordan Valley. What they uncovered seemed ordinary at first, a series of underground burial chambers linked by narrow corridors. But as the excavations continued, something became clear. These structures were not just old, they were impossibly sophisticated. What do you think were the Rammy tombs built by human hands, or do they represent a forgotten technology lost to time? Share your theory in the comments below. Each tomb was cut with an exactness that left researchers speechless. The walls are perfectly straight, the corners form flawless right angles, and the ceilings rise in symmetrical arches that disperse weight evenly, an engineering principle supposedly unknown to that era. The rock-cut corridors are aligned with mathematical precision, some even descending in a spiral pattern that keeps air circulating naturally throughout the tomb. No chisel marks can be seen on many surfaces. Instead, the stone appears polished, as if shaped by a rotating tool or a drill far more advanced than the crude copper implements known from the 3rd millennium BCE. Some entrances are circular, a design feature rarely seen in Near Eastern burial architecture, leading to speculation that the builders used rotational boring techniques similar to those hypothesized at other megalithic sites like Malta or Petra. The most puzzling aspect, however, is the fit of the stones. Where blocks were used, they interlock so tightly that not even a human hair can be inserted between them. There is no visible mortar, no binding substance, only pure stone, meeting stone in seamless unity. Modern architects admit that such precision would require laser-level surveying or computer-guided cutting tools. Yet the Rammy builders achieved it with nothing more than knowledge lost to time. When analyzed, the tombs reveal a striking consistency in geometry. The angles of corridors often repeat in perfect ratios, 1:1:3 ratios that correspond to the sacred geometries found in the pyramids of Egypt and the ziggurats of Mesopotamia. Some chambers are circular domes inscribed within invisible geometric grids, as if the builders followed blueprints derived from advanced mathematics. Even more mysterious, the tombs seem to align astronomically. The main entrance points toward the sunrise during the spring equinox, a phenomenon that suggests the builders not only understood geometry, but also celestial mechanics. Their awareness of solar cycles may have guided the design, allowing light to penetrate the inner sanctum on specific days of the year, perhaps during rituals honoring the dead or rebirth. How could people living more than 6,000 years ago have mastered such spatial reasoning? To this day, no workshop tool or written record has been found to explain how these precision cuts were made. It is as if the tombs themselves were the tools of education, a living classroom of stone, where geometry met spirituality. In one chamber, researchers discovered what appears to be an unfinished section, a tunnel abruptly ending in smooth, circular grooves. Some archaeologists believe these grooves are evidence of a rotational drilling mechanism, perhaps powered by a rope and wheel system, or even a primitive form of rotary hammering. Others think the explanation lies in a completely unknown technique, something that allowed ancient masons to melt or soften stone at the surface level. Traces of heat discoloration on the limestone support the latter theory. If true, it could indicate an early understanding of thermochemical manipulation, where heat and mineral compounds were used to weaken stone before carving. Comparable marks have been found in South America's megalithic walls at Sacsayhuaman and Ollantaytambo, where polygonal stones fit together with almost molecular precision. Could it be that Jericho's builders shared or rediscovered the same ancient science? Another inexplicable detail is the absence of tool debris. When ancient builders worked stone, they typically left behind fragments, chips, or dust, but the Rammy tombs contain almost none. Every surface looks as if it was carved, cleaned, and polished in a controlled environment. Even the air shafts, some only 30 centimeters wide, maintain consistent diameter over several meters, a feat that modern tunneling engineers find difficult without mechanical assistance. Inside the tombs, archaeologists found plastered human skulls, ornaments of copper and tin, and pottery of styles belonging to distant regions, Mesopotamia, the Levantine coast, even the Red Sea. This mixture hints at an early network of long-distance trade, but also raises a deeper question: did the Rammy tombs belong to an elite society of engineers and astronomers, the scientific class of their time? Some believe the people buried here were the master builders of ancient Jericho, individuals, revered not as kings or warriors, but as keepers of sacred knowledge, the ones who could shape the earth with divine precision. Others go further, suggesting that the Rammy tombs are remnants of an even older civilization, perhaps a forgotten pre-dynastic culture that laid the groundwork for the monumental traditions of Egypt and Sumer. Laser scans conducted in the early 2000s revealed something astonishing. The entire Rammy complex follows a fractal pattern. Smaller chambers mirror the proportions of the larger ones. The main corridor ratio to the entire complex is the same as that between certain chambers, a phenomenon reminiscent of the golden ratio. Such structural recursion implies deliberate design, not random carving. The builders likely understood how to replicate harmonic proportions to create both physical balance and symbolic meaning. To them, mathematics was not a tool. It was a sacred language, the geometry of the divine. Some scholars interpret this as evidence that the Rammy tombs were not merely burial sites, but initiation chambers where spiritual rituals intertwined with cosmic symbolism. Light shafts, that illuminate specific carvings at dawn suggest a connection to solar worship, perhaps the rebirth of the sun mirrored the rebirth of the soul. If one looks closely at the engineering of these tombs, one begins to question whether human hands alone were responsible. The precision of the stonework rivals that of later Roman vaults or even modern concrete casting. And yet there are no signs of scaffolding, no inscriptions describing techniques, no blueprints. The mystery deepens when comparing the Rammy tombs to other global anomalies, the stone spheres of Costa Rica, the underground chambers of Malta, and the Cyclopean walls of Cusco. All share one thing: a technological anachronism, a mismatch between what was built and what humanity was supposedly capable of at the time. Were the builders inheritors of a vanished technology, survivors of an earlier advanced civilization wiped out by catastrophe? Or did human ingenuity, guided by an unrecorded burst of creativity, independently achieve the impossible? The archaeological layers of Jericho reveal a city that has risen and fallen countless times over 10 millennia. Within that vast timeline, the Rammy tombs may belong to an age when humankind was learning to defy time through stone. Perhaps their builders were not gods, but dreamers of eternity, using geometry and matter to leave their mark. Today, the tombs lie in silence. Corridors half-collapsed, secrets sealed, yet every cut in the stone still whispers of a lost intelligence beneath Jericho's ancient sun. The Rammy tombs of Jericho are not just archaeological relics, they are questions carved in stone. Who were the engineers of eternity, and how could they measure and build with such perfect precision? Why did that knowledge vanish, only to reappear millennia later? Until answered, they remain a haunting reminder of humanity's lost intelligence. The 12 Pillars of Ugarit, Syria. A monument shrouded in mystery, standing as silent testimony to the lost brilliance of an ancient civilization that once flourished on the Syrian coast. Among the ruins of Ugarit, archaeologists have uncovered something that challenges the very timeline of human technological evolution. 12 massive stone columns aligned with celestial precision and crafted with an engineering sophistication that defies the tools and knowledge believed to exist over 3,000 years ago. What do you think the 12 Pillars of Ugarit truly were? A sacred temple, an ancient observatory, or evidence of a forgotten technology? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Nestled near the modern site of Ras Shamra, Ugarit was once one of the most advanced cities of the late Bronze Age. It was a center of trade culture and learning that connected Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Mediterranean world. The people of Ugarit created one of the earliest known alphabets, a 30-symbol script that would later inspire Phoenician and Greek writing systems and ultimately shape how we communicate today. Yet while their written legacy was extraordinary, it is the 12 pillars that have captivated modern researchers, whispering of knowledge far beyond their time. At first glance, the pillars appear as remnants of a ruined temple. Each column rises over 4 meters high, carved from dense limestone and weighing several tons. But closer inspection reveals something astonishing. These structures were not placed randomly. They are arranged in a perfect semicircle, aligned to the winter solstice sunrise, with gaps between the columns, allowing the first rays of sunlight to pass directly into what seems to have been the ritual center of the site. The geometry of their placement forms a pattern that mirrors the movement of celestial bodies, a deliberate design that suggests astronomical intent rather than mere decoration. This alignment is not coincidence. The builders of Ugarit were clearly observing the heavens, tracking the rhythms of the sun and stars with mathematical precision. Many archaeologists now believe that the 12 pillars symbolize the 12 months of the solar year, forming part of a ritual calendar used to mark agricultural or religious cycles. Others propose that it was a stone observatory, much like Stonehenge in England or Nabta Playa in Egypt, monuments that combined architecture and astronomy to connect the human world with the divine cosmos. But what truly sets the 12 pillars apart is the mysterious level of technical mastery required to build them. The bedrock upon which they stand has been perfectly leveled, showing traces of deliberate grinding and smoothing that would be difficult to achieve even with modern tools. Each column sits within a socket carved to match its base with millimetric accuracy, a fit so precise that no mortar was needed, and the stones have withstood over 3 millennia of earthquakes, erosion, and war. When studied under magnification, the stone surfaces show parallel cut marks as if shaped by saws or rotary tools far more advanced than simple bronze chisels. Some archaeologists have suggested that copper or bronze tools hardened with arsenic or tin could explain such precision, but others are not convinced. The linear grooves resemble those created by mechanical cutting devices, an idea that has stirred considerable debate. Could the Ugaritians have possessed lost metallurgical or mechanical technologies that allowed them to carve and align megaliths with such precision? To put this in perspective, at the same time that Ugarit was building its 12 pillars, most of the world still relied on stone or rudimentary bronze implements. Yet these structures demonstrate an understanding of geometry, load distribution, and celestial orientation that should not have been possible for a Bronze Age society. The builders not only positioned the pillars to follow astronomical cycles, but also engineered them to endure balancing form, function, and spiritual symbolism in perfect harmony. Archaeological reconstructions suggest that the site once featured an elevated platform around the columns, perhaps used for ceremonial observation of the sky. The platform's foundation stones interlock with uncanny precision, with joints so tight that even a modern knife blade cannot fit between them. This architectural style is reminiscent of the megalithic walls of Cusco and Machu Picchu, thousands of miles away and separated by millennia, prompting speculation about whether there was once a shared, global tradition of stoneworking knowledge. Ancient Ugaritic texts add yet another layer of mystery. Clay tablets found nearby mention 12 pillars that uphold the heavens, built in honor of the gods Baal and Shapash, the storm and sun deities who ruled over light and life. These descriptions mirror cosmological beliefs found across ancient civilizations, the number 12 representing time, order, and the cyclical nature of existence. But some fragments hint at something deeper: stones that capture the light of heaven and measure the turning of the year. Could these cryptic lines refer to the use of the pillars as a solar measurement device, capable of marking the solstices and equinoxes with striking precision? The sophistication of their design has led some researchers to compare the 12 pillars with other prehistoric monuments aligned to the sun, from the Temple of Abu Simbel in Egypt to the sacred gates of Tiwanaku in Bolivia. Yet, unlike those sites, Ugarit's pillars exhibit a distinctly scientific character. Every spacing, every angle, every shadow seems intentional, as if the entire structure were a living clock of stone measuring the dance of time across the heavens. And then there is the question of their construction technique. How did ancient workers move and raise these multi-ton columns? No cranes, no iron tools, no written record of their methods. Some theorists propose the use of ramps, pulleys, and wooden scaffolds, while others argue that the stones show abrasion patterns consistent with high-frequency cutting tools or even heat-assisted carving techniques that would require a level of technological advancement previously thought impossible. Geologists studying the area have also found magnetic anomalies around the site, minor but measurable fluctuations in the Earth's magnetic field near the base of the pillars. Whether caused by the mineral composition of the stone or deliberate placement over geomagnetic ley lines, the effect has intrigued scientists and mystics alike. Locals for generations have spoken of faint glowing lights that appear between the pillars at dusk, whispers of energy perhaps, or remnants of ritual fires long extinguished. As with many ancient wonders, the more we uncover, the less we seem to understand. The 12 pillars could represent the culmination of centuries of accumulated knowledge, astronomical, architectural, and spiritual, all woven into a single enduring structure. Or they could be the surviving fragment of something even greater, a lost science that connected heaven and earth through geometry and light. What remains undeniable is that these stones embody a level of craftsmanship and intellectual depth that forces us to rethink the capabilities of ancient civilizations. The Ugaritians were not primitive. They were engineers, mathematicians, and philosophers of their time, builders of monuments whose secrets still elude us. Today, the ruins of Ugarit lie quiet under the Syrian sun. The wind moves through the hollow spaces where priests once stood, where sunlight once cut through the air in perfect alignment. The pillars, though weathered and cracked, still hold their ground unchanged through millennia, defying time itself. They remind us that humanity's story is not a straight line of progress, but a circle full of rises, falls, and forgotten peaks of brilliance. The 12 pillars of Ugarit remain one of humanity's greatest enigmas, a riddle carved in stone where faith, science, and cosmic order converged. Their precision defies time, their purpose still unknown. Were they sacred monuments or remnants of a forgotten science? Whatever the truth, they stand as a timeless testament to the brilliance, devotion, and mystery of our ancient ancestors. Rising like a silent sentinel above the ancient city of Jericho, the mountain of Jebel Quruntal stands steep and scarred against the pale desert sky. From afar, it looks like a ridge carved by eternity itself. But those who have climbed its stone flanks know that the real mystery lies not outside, but within. For hidden in its rugged body are dozens of caves, some natural, others carved by human hands, and inside them, symbols and inscriptions that seem to whisper across millennia. Scholars, pilgrims, and mystics have walked its narrow paths for centuries, calling it by its Arabic name, Quruntal, meaning 40, the number of days that Jesus fasted and was tempted by the devil in the wilderness. Yet even beyond this sacred association, the mountain conceals riddles that no theology, archaeology, or science has yet fully decoded. What do you think these ancient symbols truly represent? Faith, lost knowledge, or something else entirely? Share your thoughts below. According to Christian tradition, Jebel Quruntal marks the very site where Christ withdrew to the desert for 40 days. During this period of fasting and solitude, he was tempted 3 times by Satan and resisted, each affirming the triumph of faith over the human hunger for power and pleasure. This story has made Quruntal one of the holiest landmarks in the Holy Land, a symbol of inner strength and spiritual struggle. But as early pilgrims and monks began to settle in the area, they noticed something else. The caves were not mere shelters. Many bore the marks of deliberate carvings, smooth and symmetrical walls, and strange etchings whose meanings were unclear. Some caves reached 30 or even 40 meters deep, connected by narrow tunnels that could only have been created by skilled hands. Others opened into small chambers where the light fell precisely at dawn or sunset, suggesting a level of architectural and astronomical awareness far beyond that of simple hermits. Archaeological surveys have confirmed that many of these caves predate the Christian era. Traces of older inscriptions written in Greek, Aramaic, and even Nabatean suggest that the mountain was a sacred place long before Christ's time. Certain cuts in the limestone seem too precise, too linear, as if made by a tool far harder than bronze or iron. The surfaces of some inner walls are polished almost to a mirror sheen, reflecting torchlight like glass. How such precision was achieved in an age without modern drills remains one of the mountain's enduring enigmas. The caves also contain what appear to be ritual basins and niches, possibly used for offerings or meditation. In several chambers, stone benches and steps have been found aligned in semicircular patterns facing carved altars. Yet what draws the greatest fascination and confusion are the symbols. Across many walls of the Jebel Quruntal caves appear symbols that defy easy classification. Among them are crosses, circles within circles, winged shapes resembling birds or angels, and spirals that seem to flow endlessly into themselves. While some may have been added by Byzantine monks, others are far older and stylistically distinct. The most intriguing are the concentric circles with radiant lines, a motif that appears repeatedly, often near entrances or above alcoves. To the untrained eye, they might seem like suns or halos, but researchers have noticed that the spacing of the rings corresponds with patterns seen in ancient Mesopotamian cosmology, where circles represented levels of heaven or consciousness. Could these marks predate Christianity and represent an older mystical system that the monks later adopted and reinterpreted? Even more enigmatic are the composite symbols, combining crosses with triangles or stars, as though multiple belief systems merged within the same space. In one chamber, archaeologists discovered an inscription in faint Greek letters, half eroded by time, that reads, "The light speaks in silence." It sits directly below a series of interconnected spirals, perhaps a metaphor for divine communication or a literal map of spiritual ascent. But not all markings are identifiable. Certain carvings appear geometric, yet purposeful, reminiscent of coded alphabets or ciphered prayers. Scholars who have studied the Dead Sea Scrolls, found not far from here, suspect that some of these inscriptions could belong to the Essenes, a secretive Jewish sect known for their asceticism and symbolic writing. If true, the Jebel Quruntal caves may once have served as a hermitage or initiation site where spiritual teachings were recorded in symbols rather than words. One of the most persistent legends about Jebel Quruntal suggests that ancient manuscripts remain sealed deep within its inner chambers. Monks and explorers alike have reported blocked tunnels filled with stones that seem deliberately arranged. Local oral traditions tell of scrolls of light written by hands, guided by angels, stored to preserve divine wisdom from destruction. Some modern researchers have tried to link these tales to the Dead Sea Scrolls, speculating that members of the Essene community may have hidden additional texts here beyond the caves of Qumran. The proximity to Jericho and the mountain's isolation make it an ideal hiding place. Infrared scans and ground-penetrating radar have revealed anomalies, hollow voids, and linear cavities that hint at undiscovered spaces behind the visible caves. Whether these are man-made or natural is still debated. The Orthodox Church discourages excavation out of reverence for the holy site, leaving much of the mystery sealed behind stone. Clinging to the cliffs of Jebel Quruntal is one of the most astonishing architectural feats of the Middle Ages, the Greek Orthodox Monastery of the Temptation. Built partly inside the rock and partly upon it, the monastery seems to float between heaven and earth. Its narrow balconies overlook the Jericho Valley, offering a breathtaking view of the desert, stretching to the Dead Sea. The monastery was first established in the Byzantine era, then rebuilt by Crusaders, and again in the 19th century. Yet the base foundation, massive limestone blocks fitted without mortar, may date much earlier, possibly to the Hellenistic or even Persian periods. Some experts believe the original structure was designed to guard sacred relics or underground passages. The monastery's current monks still maintain a small chapel inside one of the original caves, where candles illuminate faded frescoes and inscriptions on the rock. Visitors to Jebel Quruntal have often reported unusual physical sensations inside the deeper caves. The flicker of flames without wind, a drop in temperature compasses spinning erratically. Portable electronic devices sometimes lose power unexpectedly, and even modern measuring tools have recorded minor electromagnetic fluctuations. Scientists propose geological explanations, mineral deposits, magnetic stone, or natural resonance, yet these cannot account for the selective nature of the disturbances. Mystics, on the other hand, interpret them as manifestations of spiritual energy, remnants of centuries of prayer, suffering, and revelation concentrated in one sacred point. The deeper one looks into the caves of Jebel Quruntal, the more blurred the line becomes between religion and something older, a universal language of symbols that transcends culture and creed. The cross's circles, spirals, and coded carvings may represent not only faith, but a lost system of sacred geometry linking heaven and earth, matter and spirit. It is tempting to think that early monks inheriting this place from earlier mystics absorbed and reinterpreted these ancient signs, transforming them into Christian imagery, while preserving their deeper metaphysical meanings. This fusion of old and new could explain why the site feels simultaneously biblical and primordial, as though it belongs to every era and none. Some researchers propose that Jebel Quruntal functioned as a spiritual observatory where geometry, astronomy, and theology met. The alignment of certain symbols with solstice light patterns supports this idea. Could the undeciphered codes carved into the stone record cosmic knowledge, encoded in sacred symbols rather than words? The Jebel Quruntal caves remain a sacred place of pilgrimage and reflection. In the darkness, the monk's candlelight flickers across ancient spirals and symbols like the breath of a thousand-year memory. Every carved line holds a meaning yet to be deciphered, a prayer, a warning, or forgotten knowledge. Until the mountain reveals its final secret, Jebel Quruntal will stand as a symbol of faith and lost ancient wisdom. In the hills southwest of Jerusalem, near a place called Ketef Hinnom, two small pieces of silver changed everything we thought we knew about the Bible, ancient craftsmanship, and humanity's connection with the divine. They were not golden idols or monumental stones. They were tiny, fragile scrolls of silver, tightly rolled and hidden inside a rock-cut tomb. Yet when unrolled, they revealed words that had echoed across millennia, a blessing so powerful that even time could not erase it. Discovered in 1979 by Israeli archaeologist Gabriel Barkay, these two scrolls were found inside an ancient burial chamber dating back to the 7th century BCE during the last years of the Kingdom of Judah. The tomb itself, carved into limestone, lay silent for more than 2.5 millennia, until Barkay's team stumbled upon it during excavations near St. Andrew's Church in Jerusalem. Inside were pottery fragments, jewelry, and bones, but what truly caught their attention was a pair of small, corroded silver rolls, each no longer than a man's finger, and blackened by centuries underground. It took 3 years of painstaking restoration before the scrolls could be opened. Archaeologists feared that the thin sheets, no thicker than a human fingernail, would crumble to dust. Using microscopes and micro-tools under laboratory conditions, conservators gradually unfurled the silver millimeter by millimeter. What they revealed was nothing short of extraordinary. Tiny lines of ancient Hebrew text etched so finely that even modern scientists needed high magnification imaging to read them. Do you think these ancient artisans could truly create such microscopic engravings without advanced tools, or might they have possessed knowledge long lost to time? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When scholars began deciphering the writing, they realized that the scrolls contained the priestly blessing, a passage still used today in Jewish, Christian, and even modern ceremonies. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. These words, found in the book of Numbers 6:24-26, had been thought to originate from a much later period, long after the Babylonian exile. But the Ketef Hinnom scrolls proved otherwise. Carbon dating and contextual evidence place them around 600–700 BCE, 4 centuries older than the Dead Sea Scrolls. Suddenly, the world had before it the oldest known fragment of biblical scripture ever discovered, written not on parchment or papyrus, but on silver. But their purpose went beyond religious writing. The scrolls were clearly amulets rolled tightly and possibly worn as protective charms. The text invoked divine favor and protection, suggesting they were meant to shield the wearer from harm, both in life and in death. The burial context of Ketef Hinnom supported this idea. They were found beside human remains inside a tomb chamber, used repeatedly over generations. To the people of ancient Judah, faith and survival were intertwined. The words of the blessing were more than a prayer. They were a spiritual shield, a link between the mortal body and the eternal soul. Among all the astonishing aspects of this discovery, none is more mysterious than the technology used to create the inscriptions. Each scroll was made of pure silver, beaten into an ultra-thin sheet, less than 0.01 inch thick, thinner than most modern foils. The Hebrew characters, barely visible to the naked eye, were carved with such precision that even under powerful microscopes, the strokes appear clean and deliberate, with consistent depth and spacing. How could artisans living 2,600 years ago, without magnifying lenses, modern tools, or precision instruments, have engraved entire sentences onto a fragile piece of silver without tearing it apart? The level of control required is mind-boggling. One wrong movement, one fraction of excess pressure, and the silver would have snapped or folded. Yet every character was executed with surgical accuracy. The engraver must have worked slowly, possibly over many days, using a stylus of bone bronze or iron, guided purely by touch instinct and candlelight. Some researchers suggest that these ancient craftsmen may have used primitive magnification lenses made of quartz or crystal, though none have survived to prove it. Even more mysterious is the uniformity of the letters, as if written by someone trained in both art and theology, someone with an unshakable hand and an almost supernatural patience. Scholars have compared this precision to nano-engraving, a term more fitting for microchip manufacturing than ancient art. Yet here, it is the earliest known instance of human beings engraving words of faith onto a metallic medium with near microscopic exactness. The silver itself tells another story. Chemical analysis revealed that it was exceptionally pure, far purer than what was commonly produced in Judah at the time. This suggests the metal might have been imported possibly from the mines of Anatolia or the Taurus Mountains, which were famous for their high-quality silver. That raises new questions. Who could afford such material? Was it commissioned by priests of the Temple of Solomon, or perhaps by a royal family seeking divine favor? The act of using silver, a metal associated with purity, moonlight and sacred value hints at profound symbolism. In many ancient cultures, silver was thought to ward off evil and reflect divine light. To carve the words of the Lord into it was to bind holiness into metal, turning the scrolls into everlasting vessels of faith. The dating of the Ketef Hinnom scrolls coincides with the reign of King Josiah, an era of religious reform in Jerusalem when the Temple of Solomon still stood. This was a time when priests sought to preserve and codify ancient traditions amid growing threats from empires like Assyria and Babylon. The fact that the priestly blessing appears here in almost identical form to the modern biblical version indicates that it was already a formalized liturgical text in use within the temple itself. This makes the scrolls not merely archaeological artifacts, but fragments of Israel's living ritual life, physical proof that the prayers spoken in synagogues and churches today have roots reaching directly into the Iron Age. The tomb where the scrolls were found adds another layer of intrigue. It was part of a necropolis overlooking the Hinnom Valley, used by elite families of ancient Jerusalem. The presence of finely crafted jewelry, pottery, and imported goods indicates the dead were people of high status, possibly priests or temple officials. That the scrolls were found in their burial chambers suggests they believed these sacred words would protect their souls in the afterlife, much like the Book of the Dead did for Egyptians. Modern researchers used electron microscopy, infrared photography, and advanced imaging software to reconstruct every letter on the scrolls. The results astonished even the most skeptical scholars. Despite centuries of corrosion, nearly the entire text could be read line by line. The consistency between the two scrolls also revealed something profound. They were not random inscriptions, but carefully crafted replicas, possibly part of a wider tradition of metal-based scripture amulets. Today, the Ketef Hinnom scrolls rest in the Israel Museum in Jerusalem, encased in a climate-controlled chamber to protect them from air and light. Visitors who see them are often surprised they are so small that one could mistake them for pieces of jewelry. Yet their significance is immense. These delicate rolls bridge the gap between archaeology and theology, between craftsmanship and spirituality, between human fragility and divine endurance. They remind us that faith has always been an art form, one that demanded not just belief, but skill, precision, and sacrifice. The same hands that carved those microscopic letters 200-600 years ago were not merely writing words, they were etching eternity into metal. The silver scrolls of Ketef Hinnom stand as a timeless reflection of human genius and faith. They reveal that even in the ancient world, people possessed extraordinary precision, spirituality, and artistry. Each engraved letter on the fragile silver embodies the union of belief and innovation, proof that devotion itself can be a tool of creation. When light touches them today, the faint Hebrew words still gleam like whispers of hope, sealed in silver for eternity. Hidden among the harsh cliffs and red basalt plains of Western Australia's Burrup Peninsula, the Murujuga Rock Art Site stands as one of the greatest and most mysterious cultural legacies of humankind. With over 1 million engravings scattered across its desert landscape, this ancient gallery is not only the largest concentration of petroglyphs on Earth, but also one of the oldest, its origins stretching back more than 40,000 years, possibly even beyond the last ice age. To walk through Murujuga is to walk through time itself. Each rock face tells fragments of stories of people, animals, spirits, and cosmic events carved by human hands thousands of generations ago. Yet despite the growing sophistication of archaeology, the full message encoded within these stones remains a mystery beyond translation. Do you think the Murujuga rock carvings represent the first human language, or were they sacred rituals carved in stone? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Archaeologists believe the earliest engravings at Murujuga predate the pyramids of Egypt, the temples of Mesopotamia, and even the Lascaux cave paintings of France. These works were created by the ancestors of today's Ngardangali peoples who have lived in the Pilbara region in an unbroken line of tradition for tens of millennia, arguably the longest continuous cultural lineage on Earth. Unlike painted caves that use natural pigments, Murujuga's petroglyphs were carved directly into the iron-rich basalt using stone tools. The desert air and oxidation over time caused the newly exposed surfaces to contrast sharply with the dark outer crust, making the images visible even after tens of thousands of years. The durability of these engravings is almost supernatural. While the desert winds have scoured every dune and eroded every cliff, the images of kangaroos, emus, turtles, and human figures have remained intact witnesses to the rise and fall of entire geological epochs. Among the recognizable depictions of wildlife are creatures that no longer roam the earth: thylacines, Tasmanian tigers, giant marsupial kangaroos, and the extinct genyornis, a massive, flightless bird. These serve as a direct record of prehistoric ecosystems that vanished long before written language appeared anywhere else. The artists who made them not only observed, but deeply understood these animals, their behavior, anatomy, and perhaps even their spiritual roles. Many scenes portray hunting rituals, family groups, or mysterious hybrid beings, part animal, part human, as if the carvers sought to merge the physical and the spiritual worlds through art. Modern researchers have marveled at the precision of Murujuga's petroglyphs. The engravers used pecking, chiseling, and polishing techniques so advanced that even with primitive stone tools, they achieved depth control, symmetry, and detail that rival fine metal engraving. Some figures are so accurately proportioned that they suggest the use of geometric planning circles, spirals, and ratios that hint at an intuitive grasp of mathematics and optics. The artists seem to know how the rock would reflect light under the desert sun, using texture to make the images move as the day passed. Among the millions of engravings at Murujuga, what most confounds scientists is not the extraordinary craftsmanship, but the mysterious system of symbols, abstract markings, unlike any known language, religion, or mathematical system. Hidden among depictions of humans and animals are countless spirals, woven grids, radiant suns, and concentric circles repeating across different rock faces as if they belonged to a single ancient code, governed by its own rules. Some resemble constellations or celestial orbits, while others mirror waterholes, dunes, or ancient river paths, suggesting that the ancients may have been trying to record maps of the land or sky in their own way. For decades, researchers have proposed many theories. Some believe these carvings represent ancient trade routes, guiding travelers across the harsh Pilbara desert. Others argue they are records of star positions, evidence of astronomical knowledge far beyond what we imagined for the Stone Age. Yet to the Aboriginal elders, the explanation is entirely different. They believe the symbols are marks left by ancestral beings during the Dreamtime, the era when the universe was sung into existence. According to their traditions, each carving represents a moment of creation, a story of the earth written in stone, the voice of the rocks, not a code meant for human translation. Modern science has tried to decode this language of stone using statistical and morphological analysis. When researchers counted the recurrence of motifs, something unexpected appeared: patterns of order and structure, as though the shapes formed a kind of ancient grammar. Yet without a Rosetta Stone, the system remains undeciphered. Some archaeologists even suggest that these markings predate humanity's symbolic language, representing the first attempts to express awareness and abstract thought when spoken language had not yet fully evolved. The mystery deepens when considering Murujuga's age. During the Pleistocene Ice Age, when many of the engravings were made, the coastline lay more than 100 kilometers farther out, and much of the land where ancient people once lived is now submerged beneath the Indian Ocean. This raises a tantalizing possibility. Could there be even older carvings beneath the waves, hidden in darkness, holding the first chapter of humanity's language that we have yet to read? To the indigenous custodians, Murujuga's images are portals, each stone connecting the physical and spiritual realms. Many figures depict transformations, humans merging with serpents or spirits rising from the ground. These scenes may illustrate the transition between life and death, or the crossing of worlds during Dreamtime creation. Modern viewers, however, often sense something else, an attempt by early humans to record cosmic order, to impose meaning on chaos through geometry and repetition. It is art, but it is also communication, an ancient form of data storage, written not in ink or clay, but in rock itself. Some historians compare Murujuga's spirals to those of Newgrange in Ireland or Chaco Canyon in North America, suggesting a universal human urge to mark the heavens. Yet Murujuga predates them all, making it the earliest surviving system of symbolic communication, a proto-language of design and rhythm. Despite its World Heritage value, Murujuga faces grave danger. The region's rich mineral deposits have made it a hub of industrial activity, oil refineries, gas extraction, and shipping. Environmental scientists warn that acidic emissions are slowly corroding the basalt surfaces, dulling the contrast that has preserved the images for millennia. Once the patina erodes, the engravings will fade into the rock, forever erasing voices older than civilization itself. Efforts are underway to have Murujuga inscribed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site to protect it under international law. But even as conservationists campaign for preservation, parts of the site have already been damaged, some panels destroyed before they could be documented. Each loss is a paragraph torn from humanity's oldest book. The deeper scientists study Murujuga, the more they realize that these engravings are not random art. They represent structured knowledge systems, environmental awareness, astronomy, seasonal migration, and social hierarchy. The people who made them were not primitive hunters, but keen observers of the Earth's rhythms. Still, one great question remains unanswered. What did the symbols mean to those who made them? Were they prayers, lessons, warnings, or perhaps records of celestial events? Supernovae, comets, eclipses passed down, not by writing, but by stone memory. Until the symbols can be decoded, Murujuga will continue to whisper its secrets in a tongue only the wind understands. Murujuga raises a question about the true meaning of language. In this digital age, it still stands as a library older than writing itself. The carvings seem to whisper before humans could write. They already knew how to remember in stone. Each spiral and groove is a record of the first thoughts, the moment humanity stepped beyond instinct and touched awareness. Perhaps this stone code was never meant for us, but rather a conversation between the earth and its earliest inhabitants, a timeless message capturing the moment when humankind first learned to dream. Amid the sunburned plains of the Jordan Valley lies one of the most confounding archaeological sites in the Middle East, Tall el-Hammam. At first glance, it appears to be just another Bronze Age ruin, a collection of eroded walls and broken pottery scattered across the dust. Yet beneath its silent stones lies a mystery, that refuses to be buried, the story of a city that flourished was annihilated in an instant and may have once represented a level of architectural and technological mastery far beyond what ancient history dares to admit. When archaeologists began excavating the site in the early 2000s, they quickly realized that Tall el-Hammam was no ordinary city. Layer after layer revealed evidence of advanced urban planning, wide streets, massive defensive walls, a palace complex, and a sophisticated system for storing food and managing water. The city was by all accounts a major center of power in the southern Levant around 1700 BCE. But the more researchers uncovered, the stranger things became. If a civilization like Tall el-Hammam truly possessed such advanced knowledge thousands of years ago, do you think it was a product of human genius or evidence of a lost ancient civilization we no longer remember? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The megalithic walls of Tall el-Hammam are built from enormous blocks of stone, some weighing several tons, precisely shaped and aligned without the use of iron tools, cranes, or mortar. Each block fits so tightly against the next that even a knife blade cannot be inserted between them. This is not the crude masonry of early nomadic tribes. It is deliberate, planned, and executed with mathematical precision. The geometry of the walls, the choice of stone, and the symmetrical layout suggest an understanding of engineering principles that should not have existed in the Bronze Age. The builders used bazan and sandstone in alternating layers, likely to absorb shock from earthquakes, a technique strikingly similar to that used in much later Roman structures. Some megaliths even feature rounded cornerstones, perfectly shaped to distribute weight evenly along the wall's curvature. These are not random or primitive choices. They reveal a deep grasp of materials and stress distribution knowledge that, in theory, was thousands of years ahead of its time. This technical sophistication extends beyond the city's visible ruins. Archaeologists have unearthed kilns, drainage systems, and storage chambers designed to regulate temperature and humidity, evidence of an advanced understanding of environmental control. The inhabitants were not merely farmers or traders, they were engineers, scientists, and planners. The deeper question is, where did this knowledge come from? Tall el-Hammam predates many of the great civilizations of the region, including the Israelites, the Babylonians, and the later Greek city-states. Yet its builders employed methods that seem to anticipate those later empires. One theory suggests that Tall el-Hammam was part of a wider forgotten civilization that once flourished across the ancient Near East, a network of cities sharing architectural ideas, astronomical observations, and trade routes stretching from Mesopotamia to Egypt. The placement of certain structures within the city even appears to correspond to solar alignments, suggesting that the builders may have used celestial markers to plan their architecture. If true, this implies that Tall el-Hammam's inhabitants possessed not only engineering knowledge, but also a rudimentary scientific worldview, one that saw the heavens and the earth as interconnected systems. Such intellectual sophistication contradicts the conventional narrative that Bronze Age people were guided solely by superstition and myth. And yet, despite this brilliance, the city was suddenly and violently erased from history. Around 1650 BCE, something catastrophic happened. Archaeologists discovered a thin layer of ash and debris, the so-called destruction layer, that covers the entire site. Beneath it, they found melted pottery, vaporized minerals, and stones fused into glass. Some fragments show evidence of exposure to temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees hotter than any furnace known to the ancient world. Such extreme heat could only have come from a cosmic explosion, a meteor airburst similar to the Tunguska event in Siberia in 1908. Scientists from the University of California and Trinity Southwest University analyzed the soil and found microscopic spherules of shocked quartz and molten metal, indicating that the region was struck by an aerial blast, powerful enough to flatten everything within kilometers. The city's walls were leveled, the inhabitants incinerated, and the fertile valley turned into a wasteland of salt and ash. It took nearly 600 years for people to return to the area long after the memory of its destruction had become legend. This apocalyptic event may have been immortalized in one of the world's oldest and most haunting myths, the biblical tale of Sodom and Gomorrah. The book of Genesis describes two cities in the plains of the Jordan, destroyed by fire and brimstone from the heavens. The similarities between the text and the geological evidence at Tol el-Hammam are startling. The same valley, the same sudden annihilation, the same scorched remains. Whether or not Tol el-Hammam was Sodom, the parallels raise an unsettling question: were ancient religious texts actually preserving eyewitness accounts of real cosmic events, misunderstood, mythologized, but grounded in truth? Even after the firestorm, the megaliths of Tol el-Hammam remain standing, defiant, unbroken, as if engineered to endure forces beyond comprehension. Some show signs of partial vitrification, meaning their surfaces were flash-melted and cooled into glassy textures. Yet their structural integrity remains intact, hinting at a construction method specifically designed to resist extreme heat and shock. Could the builders have anticipated seismic or celestial threats? Did they encode protective measures into their architecture, much like modern engineers design earthquake-proof buildings? The patterns of reinforcement and interlocking stonework suggest as much, though how they acquired this foresight remains unknown. What baffles modern researchers most is that Tol el-Hammam's architectural sophistication precedes comparable techniques elsewhere by centuries. The precise fitting of megaliths resembles that of Baalbek in Lebanon and Pumapunku in Bolivia, sites separated by continents yet united by their inexplicable mastery of stone. Were these developments independent coincidences, or remnants of a shared global knowledge base that has since vanished? The possibility that ancient builders understood principles of physics, geometry, and material science far better than historians believe is deeply unsettling. It challenges our entire understanding of how civilization evolved. The ruins of Tol el-Hammam whisper of an age when humanity may have been more capable, more advanced than we are willing to admit. Its megaliths are not just stones, they are data carved into rock fragments of a forgotten manual on how to build for eternity. Some researchers propose that the site might have served as a knowledge hub, a center where architecture, astronomy, and early science converged. Its grid-like planning, symmetrical design, and celestial orientation point to a deliberate union between human intellect and cosmic order. This was not random chance. It was philosophy in stone. Who built Tol el-Hammam? How did they achieve such feats of engineering and precision in an age without iron, steel, or advanced machinery? Were they inheritors of an even older civilization, one lost to catastrophe, or did human intelligence, in isolated bursts, reach extraordinary peaks long before history began recording them? No definitive answers have yet emerged, but every new excavation, every laboratory test, and every shard of melted rock adds another piece to the puzzle, one that suggests our ancestors may have known far more than we imagine. Amid the Jordanian desert, the wind still whispers through the ancient stones of Tol el-Hammam, silent witnesses to both the greatness and fragility of humankind. This place reminds us that history is not a straight path of progress, but a cycle of rise and collapse. Perhaps long before written time, Brilliant civilizations once thrived and vanished. These stones are not mere ruins, but messages across time that wisdom belongs not only to the present, but also to the forgotten depths of the past.